lifted out. Look out. Holloway has it. Backhand to the net. He's got it. A hat trick. Third of the game. If you've got a hat, chuck it in the air.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. That is what it sounded like right here on your home of the Blues last night. Bradford, if we could take that music down just a little bit, that'd be fantastic. We're broadcasting live at the ENB Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center as Dylan Holloway produces 4 points, hat trick last night. And it served as a reminder, Alex, of what the Blues had been missing this season. He had 3 goals in his last 16 games prior to last night, and then puts up 3 goals in 1 game. That's the player that we all anticipated for the Blues this season. And when he's at his best, he does a little bit of everything. He has the ability to win the board battles. He can win in front of the net. He has an unbelievable shot. He's great in transition. He's hard on pucks. There is basically 0 weaknesses in his game when Dylan Holloway is at his best. He just hasn't been that player for most of the season. And this is really the Dylan Holloway story so far in his NHL career is, man, can the guy just stay healthy?
Yeah.
Is he going to be able to stay on the ice? Because when he's out there, he's awesome. He's just not out there enough. What did you see from him? What did you see from the Blues last night, Alex?
I mean, I saw Dylan Holloway just lift an entire roster around him. Like, hockey's such a weird sport that one guy that is just on a roll, everyone else seems to raise their game. And I think the Blues were ready to go no matter what. Jim Montgomery had done that mini camp that always seems to benefit this Blues team. But, I mean, look at how he scores those goals. One, Berggren gives him a hell of a pass from behind the net. You got a lethal shot from Dylan Holloway, which we saw last season. The second goal that he scored, he was hounding the puck in front of the net and then went straight to the net with a loose one and just poked it in. He also negated a goal against the Seattle Kraken where he was playing defense and swatted a puck out of the crease. So you got great defensive play. And then you had that empty netter, which he's on the ice with a pulled goaltender, which, guys, we know how that typically goes for the Blues, right?
No, we're great at that.
Yeah, no, they're not. Not at all. I think Curb said it on the broadcast last night. They've scored 4 empty net goals this season.
Yes,
like, it's bad. So what I saw from Dylan Holloway...
To be fair, they're not up very often,
well,
so they don't have a whole lot of opportunities.
You're not wrong, but when it happens, it doesn't typically go their way, i.e., remember those Dallas Stars games when, you know, they would score with like 30 seconds left to go in regulation. I mean, I don't know if anybody is out here acting as if Pius Suter is this world beater or Jonathan Berggren, but, I mean, those guys contributed to a line that had 9 points last night. So Dylan Holloway is a guy that raises the ceiling for a lot of guys around him. But you're right. Doug Armstrong said it a couple of months ago when he was dealing with this injury. It's like, look, Dylan Holloway has to shake this injury-riddled label that is on him because ever since college, he's been a guy that has been injured all the way up until this season. But what I saw last night from him, that's a guy that no doubt can score 30-plus goals, give you 80-plus points in a season, and be a top-line player. It's just, can you stay healthy?
Yeah, when he is going, he's the guy that can lift the lineup. And you saw that last night in that performance. And it looked like the Holloway of old to where he is a every tool player. I mean, you mentioned his defense. The shot was a heck of a shot on that one that came into the slot there. He's winning board battles. He's using his speed as well, which you saw a little bit last night. He does everything when he is healthy and right. And I thought you saw that last night from him. And he was able to lift up to your point on like Suter and Berggren. Good players, but they need probably someone to help lift them up a little bit, and Holloway did that last night by the way he was driving the offense. It was impressive. That was the guy they've missed all season long to go and pair with, like, Kyra when they had that line working early last year.
You know, I said that on postgame, and, like, people can take it as an excuse. You can take it as an explanation. I mean, Dylan Holloway is a guy that could have added a few wins to you early on in the season. Now, I know he was playing, but let's be honest. He tore... what was it, a muscle off of his hip flexor last season. He wasn't healthy. He even said so in the first month of the season in terms of feeling comfortable on the ice. He was out there in November, healthier, and he wasn't producing like the team wasn't producing. But then you get the high ankle sprain. So if you can get this guy for 82, and that's just the biggest question right now, I mean, I've said this before, and I'll stick to it. Like, I think this guy has the ability to do what Kyle Connor can do, of score you 35 to 40 goals, give you 80 to 90 points. It's just, are you healthy enough? And the part that gets you at least hungry for more is he's 24 years old. He is in that same age bracket as Neighbors and Snuggerud and Dvorsky, So it's just, can you get a Dylan Holloway for 82 games rather than 52 games?
So what they're doing right now is building out what they believe their future team to be. That's what they're hoping to do, at least. I think Holloway is a big part of that. I think Neighbors has become a part of that. I think we've seen Dvorsky. Like, that guy's definitely somewhere in your top 6, probably, likely as a second-line center whenever this team is good again. Jimmy Snuggerud, I think, is going to be a part of that. I think eventually we all anticipate that Carbonneau will be a part of this as like a middle 6 winger of some capacity. If he produces more than that, great. But I think right now that's where our expectations probably lie for him. That's a decent starting point. You've got, 5 of your top 9 forwards, and you feel pretty good about that. Where does Thomas fit into this mix? We're going to talk about that a little bit more later today. I'm not sure he does. Jordan Kyrou, it sure seems as though he's not going to fit into the mix long term. I would say Braden Shin is probably playing the final week of his Blues career right now. I think Pius Suter is a shorter term answer than the long term answer, and that's, man, what you saw last night is why another team would be very interested in Pius Suter at this year's NHL trade deadline. If I'm a contender, that is the guy that I'm circling on my board.
Yep.
He's cheap. You have another year of control. He can play center. He can play wing. He is that Swiss Army knife. He is basically, for another team in hockey, what Brendan Donovan is to baseball teams. Like, every team should be interested in that kind of a player. He also has no trade protection, which means if you acquire him at this year's deadline, if you're a contender, guess what you can do? Flip him in the offseason. If you decide, hey, this guy doesn't fit our future build, you could just then go into the offseason and say, hey, we've got a expiring $4 million center winger, can play anywhere up or down your lineup. Anybody interested? And like 29 other teams across the league would say, yes, I would like to have that player, please. So, moral of the story, they're building this thing out. It's gonna be a topsy-turvy next week or so, though, for the Blues. Alex, I know you said this to us, and I saw it on Twitter as well. Everybody on the text line after the game was saying, hey, they're screwing this up. They won a game, Alex. Now they've dropped to the 3rd worst record in the NHL, where yesterday I came in today, and they were the 2nd worst record in the NHL.
We're supposed to lose 25 straight.
Do you have any concerns about this team screwing up their top 3 pick?
No, I don't. Look, they got to win games. Like, you don't want them to go 0-25 the rest of the way, because that's even worse of the shape to be in. You want them to have games like that. But let's call a spade a spade. They beat the Seattle Kraken. Yes, the Seattle Kraken are a playoff team, but you know who's fighting for that other playoff spot? LA, who has been awful. San Jose, who for some reason is now lost 8 in a row. Chicago, Nashville. Like, guys, other than the top 5 teams in the Western Conference, it's a lot of ugh. So I'm not going to sit here and act as if the Seattle Kraken was this domination team that you went out there and whooped up on. You know who you play Saturday? Jack Hughes. That might not go so well. You know who you play on Sunday? Minnesota. Go ahead and look at the month of April. You know what? I'll do you a favor while you're driving and listening, and I'll list these teams off, and you tell me if you think the Blues match up well against these teams. The LA Kings?
No.
I actually think
Alex,
they might beat that team.
You could mention 31 of them.
Okay, fine. I'll do this quick. Anaheim, Colorado, Winnipeg, Chicago, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Utah.
I didn't hear
Maybe
Vancouver.
Winnipeg.
That's the only one I didn't think
You
we
got
were gonna match up
Vancouver and Calgary in March, so you'll probably get a couple of wins. Look, they're going to win games, but so are the New York Rangers. So are the Calgary Flames. So are the Chicago Blackhawks. You're going to be there in the bottom 5 of the Western Conference. I don't think this team's going to go win 25-0. So can we pump the brakes and just enjoy a win every once in a while when Dylan Holloway scores 3 goals?
They're going to win a couple of games. Like that. Even the worst teams that, like, right now.
For my sanity, can we get more than a couple? Just, can you give me like...
How about 5?
Give me like 5. Yeah, I'm good with 5. Give me 5.
Even Vancouver, they're awful. Like, a truly awful team. The Blues are really bad. Vancouver is awful,
They've
guys.
already started their fire sale.
They have won 18 games out of the first 58. So even the worst of the worst, they are going to win like 40% of the time. So the Blues are probably going to win roughly 2 out of every 5 games, even after Doug Armstrong has his fire sale, which appears to be starting earlier than maybe any of us expect.
That's the other thing, too. I think if this team wins back-to-back games, Doug's like, nope, sorry, let's do this.
Remember a few years ago? Was it 21? Mm-hmm. Blues get to the trade deadline, or close to it. They were a few weeks ahead of time. And they start winning some games. I remember we were here and we asked the question to open up this the show. Hey, are the Blues going to be able to change Doug Armstrong's mind? And later that show, Army traded Ryan O'Reilly. Said, "Nope, bleep you guys. You are not about to go on a run right now. You're not going to ruin my plans at this year's deadline."
The 22-23 season. I have to look at this
23,
now.
That's what it was.
He was traded on February 17th, so that's 3 weeks before the trade deadline. February 17th, the Blues had won 1, 2, 3 games, and then after the 3-game win streak, he traded O'Reilly, and then they lost 6 in a row.
Was it 2 weeks later or a week later he moved Vladdy then too?
Yep. Well, they had already lost 6 in a row, so the team kind of understood the premise
that was
at that point.
Vladdy and Mikkola deal, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So Doug's also not going to allow this team to go on a stretch. Look, I think everybody would love to just live on a magic island that says, they could go win 18 in a row and pull them. Because, again, I just saw a team that's sitting in a wild card spot. And, you know what? You probably could go on a run and push for one of those spots. It's not going to happen because I don't think Doug Armstrong is going to allow that to happen.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's 11:15. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. If you guys would like to get involved in the show, there are a couple places to do so. YouTube.com/101ESPN STL. That is where the graveyard chat is off and running today. We've got Cat Dad Gamer. We've got Walrus King. We've got Creamy over there. We've got Ryan, Bill, Dr. Xander, a whole lot of people hanging out over in the YouTube chat right now. You can also text in at 314-399-9646. That is where you could get your questions in for Ask Us Anything, which we'll get into coming up at 11:45 today. Coming up next, though, T-Bone's ready to go. Tonight, big game for the Illini. Illinois versus Michigan. This is their chance to potentially jump up to that 1 seed. Do we think they're going to be able to do it? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
The Spread Zone, where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and the occasional stroke of genius. With hosts Anthony Stalter, Tim McKernan, and Scott Rizzuto. Check out the latest from the Spread Zone at 101ESPN.com or the 101 mobile app. The Spread Zone is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Classic Air Care, who there's only a couple more days in February, so get on this opportunity now. Purchase a new HVAC system. Get a great deal because February is the month to get those great deals, but Classic Air Care is offering a full water heater system thrown in if you purchase a new HVAC system. They've got financing options for it, but there's more that goes into it. You get incredible customer service when you're a part of that Classic Air Care family. I've been using them since 2016. I'm a part of their maintenance agreement where year-round I have my maintenance taken care of for one price. They come out in the spring and the fall, clean the unit, make sure it's good to go. But if issues pop up, I get priority scheduling because I'm a part of that maintenance agreement with Classic Air Care. It's something my dad has been doing for the last 30 years as a customer of Classic Air Care. But don't believe me? Check out the thousands of 5-star reviews that they have on their Google Plus, like this one from Zach. Brady was great. Helped me understand why my filters weren't lasting long enough and getting clogged. Appreciated his knowledge. Walked me through my issues and how to avoid future problems. So call them today. Schedule online. They've got somebody there. They've got after-hour techs available for you. 100 vans out on the road, so they'll get back to you and get you on the schedule quickly. That's Classic Air Care and ClassicAirCare.com.
Broadcasting live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the ENB Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
T-Bone on BK. Big game tonight in college hoops as the Illini take on the Michigan Wolverines. It's in Champaign. T-Bone's ready to go. He's got his family shirt on today. You're excited about this game, T-Bone, for good reason. It's basically a pick-em. Michigan a slight favorite in Champaign tonight.
I am too, considering I never get to watch competitive basketball thanks to Mizzou.
They've been good lately. This is the Illini's opportunity to jump up from a potential 2 seed to a number 1 seed. Beating Michigan head-to-head would both help their resume and hurt the resume of Michigan. Maybe they potentially flip spots. This would be their best win of the season, T-Bone, if they're able to get it. How do you feel going into this one? Your team has not been playing its best basketball over the last couple of weeks. I'll start with you, Alex. I do want to get your thoughts on the game as well, but I'll go to the Illini
Family's a little bit more important than me.
How you feeling going into this one?
Yeah, I'm not feeling good going into this one because of what you said. They haven't been playing their best basketball here of late. I'm fascinated to see if they're going to be able to slow down this offense for Michigan. I mean, they are a juggernaut when you watch them play. They're unbelievable. Mm-hmm. And right now, it's going to be in the guard play for Illinois. Can Stojakovic, Boswell, and Wagler get enough stops and help guard on the perimeter? That's where they've really been lacking these during this kind of losing stretch that they've been in. Their guards just haven't been good enough defensively. And the other thing for them, when their offense is really clicking, they're able to get to the offensive glass. I don't think you're going to be able to do that against this Michigan team. So what does your offense look like when you're not able to get on the offensive boards, right? Because what a lot of they do is they run basically an NBA offense. They either take layups or they shoot threes. Mm-hmm. Well, when they're missing those 3-point shots, where they're really getting an advantage on teams, especially some of these teams that are in the middle or lower part of the Big Ten, they just bully them down low. They get the offensive rebound, they put it up, and they get points on that possession. You're probably going to have a lot of one-and-dones tonight against this Michigan side. So what does the offense look like going up against them will be something that I'll have my eye on. But, no, I don't feel good. They're playing some of their worst basketball going into a game where they're playing the best team arguably in the country.
So are you starting to wane then off of this team being a national championship team?
A little bit. I don't think they've got the defense to do it. I think they can get to the Elite Eight and maybe Final Four, but I don't think they can win it all. And I'm waiting on them getting to the Final Four because at some point they're going to have to play a 1 to get there. And right now, depending on who's the 3 in their region, like Kansas in some brackets is in their region. I don't think they can beat Kansas State because I don't think they can get enough stops.
And see, that's why this game tonight fascinates me the most about Illinois, because like we've talked about Mizzou playing up to the competition, SLU, even though they haven't really seen that level of competition, plays when they go up against those. Illinois can be struggling in these last few games. But when you go up against Michigan, this is if you want to be the man, you got to beat the man type of game. And if you look at yourselves as, hey, we're a Final Four team or we're a national championship team, which I would imagine every single player in that locker room, including Brad Underwood, feels this is it. If you drop this game, then it's hard for me to imagine you being a team that can make it to the Final Four because these are the teams you're beating. And I know regular season versus tournament, 2 different things. Everybody plays better when you get to that tournament, but this would be the game that I actually can see Illinois winning because you've been struggling, you've been underperforming. People are like, what's going on here? And then all of a sudden, boom, you pop off against Michigan, and Michigan didn't know what hit them.
And you're at home.
Yes.
That's a big part of this conversation as well. They're just – everybody is better at home, especially the excuse me, the Illini.
Emotional about it? I would.
I'm worried about their defense. I just don't know if they can get the stops that are necessary. Yeah. And you want to talk about a great offense, Illinois certainly has that. So does Michigan, man. Mm-hmm. They're unbelievable. And I have not seen Illinois get consistent stops against UCLA and Wisconsin and Michigan State. Man, if you can't stop those teams, how in the hell are you going to get stops against Michigan? I can't trust this team right now against the better teams on their schedule. You go up against Oregon, Maryland down the stretch, yeah, I trust you. I think you'll get enough stops in those situations. But if you go up against a top 40 type of a team, that's where I've got my real questions about Illinois right now. And they're going to get into the Sweet 16. I'm not even sure I'm going to be able to trust them in those games, much less once they get to the Elite Eight or somehow if they end up finding their way into the Final Four. Their defense is just too much of a liability right now for me to trust them. I would take the Michigan side of things tonight. I just have more faith in that team. They've gone up against some of the best competition in America this season, and they have consistently come away with big-time wins. I will say, like, if we're kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of this, what's going to determine the matchup, Michigan plays at this crazy high tempo. Meanwhile, Illinois wants to slow the game down. Who's going to be able to dictate the pace of this game? Is Michigan going to be able to get out and run, or is Illinois going to be able to slow them down? That's going to be a big part of this thing. I've seen Michigan play against basically everybody, and nobody's able to dictate the tempo against them.
Yeah, and that's one of my bigger concerns. Offensively, like, even if this game does play fast, Illinois is going to get theirs. The problem, though, is, like, as we've seen, and I think this is what makes it so worrisome for me for them moving into the tournament, we're at that stage of the season where when an issue has popped up, or an issue has continued, you can't really fix it. And I don't think they're going to be able to fix their defensive problems before they get to the NCAA tournament. They've got, 3 games left on their schedule, then you get the Big Ten tournament. They're not going to get enough stops. And when you have this high-powered offense, when you go up against teams like Oregon, you can kind of struggle early on defensively, but we know Oregon's not going to make their shot. So at some point, Oregon's going to cool off while your offense continues to just keep going. As we've seen in their most recent games, that's not the case for some of these top-end teams. Like Michigan State, their offense never slowed down in that game, so they never were able to get stops against them. Even UCLA is a team that they can go on a heater and keep themselves in games. They were able to do that. We saw that with Nebraska early on in the season. I don't know that they've got the guys that are going to be able to make the stops, and BK had pointed this out early in the year, I think against UConn when they lost, if I remember correctly. They don't really have anybody that can protect the paint either. So when their guards do get beat off the dribble, I like Tomislav Isevic. He's not a guy that's going to block shots, though. His brother's going to, but they don't trust his brother enough for the offense that he's only going to be playing like 10, 15 minutes at best.
They're a weird defense because you look at them and it's like, man, everybody has length on the court. Everybody. Like, they're one of the biggest teams by that metric in the country, but they don't get into passing lanes. They never create turnovers. And then if you are able to get into the lane, which is not an easy thing to do, but some of the best teams in the country are capable, like a Michigan, once you get into the lane, you can basically get whatever you want. Yeah. Because they don't have guys that are going to punish you inside. They don't have the girth, if you want to look at it that way. They don't have that kind of size. So I don't know, man. I like Illinois. I think they're a really fun team. And offensively, if you just watched the offensive film, they're a juggernaut. But, hey, man, to win a national title, you're going to have to play both ways.
I've always said if you want to win the Natty, you got to be girthy.
I've always said that. I mean, like, you think of the best teams, when they've won, their girth down the middle.
Look at UConn's teams when they went back-to-back, girthy.
Duke, girthy.
Yeah.
I apologize for that word choice.
Yeah, sure you do. You threw that bobber out into the water and said one of these two guys are going to bite.
And you knew we both would because we both looked at each other right away.
T-Bone and I looked at each other the moment you said girth.
I knew T-Bone would give me the eyes. I knew Alex would actually say something out loud. That's
I don't have a filter, ladies and gentlemen.
Latest update, bracketology-wise, by Joe Lenardi. He has Illinois as a 2 seed in Buffalo.
Oh, I wanted to watch him here.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
That would be a potential matchup in the second round against Kentucky or SMU. Kentucky would be an interesting matchup for them. The 3 seed in their region is Gonzaga. I think that's probably best case scenario if you're an Illinois fan.
It would be tough, but I think they can beat Gonzaga.
They also have Arizona and Michigan State as the 1 seed and the 4 seed in that region. But you're going to get a good 1 seed. Like there's no way around it. If you're
it's a 4 seed, I've already seen beat them.
Ideally, you would end up in that region with Gonzaga. In my opinion, that's my personal belief on the matter. SLU is a 7 seed in Joe Lenardi's latest bracketology. He has them matching up against Texas in the first round. I think SLU could and probably should win that game.
I agree.
In the second round, though, they would match up potentially with Florida.
That's a loss.
Yeah, that's a loss.
Sorry, SLU fans. Yeah. I don't think that would go particularly
It's kind of
well.
why you needed to get that like 5 or 6 seed if you were SLU going into
Mizzou
it.
is moving on up to the 10 seed in the St. Louis region.
Oh, we get to watch them. Let's go.
T-Bone would potentially be in attendance to watch them take on Wisconsin.
T-Bone's going to Buffalo.
I couldn't buy a Wisconsin sweatshirt. I just couldn't wear another Big Ten rival.
Their potential second-round matchup in this scenario would be against Iowa State, which
that was
much
fun.
like my thoughts on the SLU side of things.
That was fun, Mizzou.
Hopefully you win in the first round because the second round probably ain't going to go great for you if you're
Who's
Missouri.
the 15? Who are we rooting for in that 15?
Portland State.
Oh, they can do it.
Portland State could totally beat Mizzou.
So that's where we're at with Mizzou and
That would
SLU.
be awesome.
I will say this. If you're a Mizzou fan, and I certainly am, I would rather be a 7 or a 10 seed than be on that 8-9 line. I don't know how much it really matters because, man, these 2 seeds are all really, really good. They are the caliber of a typical number 1 seed, but I at least think there are flaws in some of their metrics, like Illinois. They are a very, very good basketball team. They don't play defense. So at least there's a flaw with them. I don't really know what I'm supposed to pick on with some of these 1 seeds. Duke, Michigan, I don't know, man. They're unbelievable. They're so good. So if you had to make the choice, would you rather be a 10 seed or on that 8/9 line? I think I'd probably rather be a 10 seed this year, especially if it means you potentially get into the St. Louis region, which sounds weird because it's a lower seed, but I would rather be there and in the region that you want to be in than bump up to that 8-9 matchup in the first round. I also just think the difference between most of the 7 seeds and the 8 seeds, like whatever,
I'd
it's
still
basically
rather
the same.
be 6-7.
Yeah, I don't think it matters because I think you couldn't handle a 1 or a 2. It's like asking how you want to go out, firing squad or like lethal injection.
Well, again, you're not girthy
they
either.
both
So
stink, but like
What would you rather have?
firing
squad.
squad
Injection.
goes quick,
Oh,
fast.
really? I've heard that's painful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You feel it when it goes in.
I think it's immediate, no?
No.
No. Firing squad.
Firing
yes.
squad's immediate as long as they hit the target.
Yeah, but either way, like you end up being like anywhere between that 7 to 10. You get a 1 or a 2. You're just going home. Like
Should we punishment for next year's Pick'em challenge?
By the way, I forgot to mention this. Just thinking about Ways to Die.
Ways to Die.
Last time that I went on a plane down to Orlando, guess what? Not a single time did I think about our plane hitting
good for
another
Those
plane.
anxiety meds are working, big
They
dog.
work.
Hell yeah.
All this time, it was anxiety.
Yeah, well,
Who would have thought? No.
You get on medicine.
Who
and
would
it
have
changes
thunk?
everything. Coming up in 15 minutes, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, go ahead and get them in on the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll answer them in a little more than 15 minutes. But next, Thomas Saggese making his spring training debut and I guess overall pro debut in center field today. Is he the Cardinal with the most to prove over the next week or so at Cardinals camp? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Girthy.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
101 ESPN has your shot to score a pair of passes to the 2026 State Farm Missouri Valley Conference Men's Basketball Tournament, hitting the court at Enterprise Center March 5th through the 8th. March begins here with the Arch Madness of the annual MVC Tournament, featuring an 11-team field. All session and single session tickets are on sale now.
Get all the details and enter to win free tickets for Arch Madness now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app.
101 ESPN.
Big save on one end. Tie game on the other.
Tomorrow night, Blues and Devils. Pregame at 3. Puck drop at 4.
Score! He tucks it in with a great move.
This is your exclusive home for Blues hockey. 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Holloway's Hattie powers Blues past Kraken. Good morning, I'm Bradford Bruns. This Sports Center update is brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. Last night, St. Louis returned from the Olympic break with plenty of offensive punch. Note 5, Seattle won. Dylan Holloway notching 3 goals and an assist in his first game since January 18th. STL will host New Jersey tomorrow afternoon on 101 ESPN. Other Saturday action, hardcourt-wise, finds number 23 SLU facing Duquesne. Mizzou visiting Mississippi State, while Illinois prepares for third-ranked Michigan. Cardinals-Mets Grapefruit League play getting underway at 12:10 p.m. Your SportsCenter update has been presented by Universal Windows Direct.
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Broadcasting live from the EMB Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
Yeah, you got us. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Thomas Saggese starting in center field today for the St. Louis Cardinals. They want to see what he looks like out there prior to him leaving for the World Baseball Classic. I think it's smart, Alex. We talked about this previously. Cardinals this spring training seem to be getting a little bit more proactive with position changes, or at least flexibility that guys have. You're seeing Thomas Saggese out of the outfield. The other day he was in left field. Today he's in center. You've seen Jose Fermin bounce around the diamond. I think today he's at shortstop, if I'm not mistaken. And you've seen Ivan Herrera. He's going to probably get his opportunity to catch this weekend as well. Alex, I was thinking about this. We mentioned yesterday, hey, Nathan Church, he's a guy that maybe we haven't talked enough about. We've got Jose Fermin who can play in the outfield as well. Lars Nootbaar is going to probably be back sooner rather than later. You'd think maybe like a month off or whatever, but he'll be back into the mix eventually. They just signed Ramon Urias as well, who can play all over the infield. You've got Gorman at third. You've got Weatherholtz at second. You've still got Mason Wynn. Man, there's a lot of competition for spots that Thomas Saggese can play at the major league level. Is he the player over the next couple of weeks that has the most pressure to perform, in your opinion?
I don't know if he has pressure to perform, because I have to imagine there's nobody that's really going to push him out of that position. I think it's all on him. So, I mean, I guess there is pressure. I just don't think the Cardinals view him as somebody that you're going to start the season in AAA. I've said this before. If you're a rebuilding team, Thomas Saggese is a guy that needs Major League Baseball reps. I don't think he needs to do anything else in the minor leagues. He's done what he needs to do. He's been down there. Now's the time that you have to see how it translates to the major leagues. And I don't know if anybody else on this roster, i.e. bench player, has the flexibility that Saggese does to where he could play second base, shortstop, third base, corner outfield, and now center field. So I don't really know if there's any pressure. If he's awful throughout spring training, can't play defense in these positions and doesn't hit at all, then yeah, he's going to go down to the minor leagues for a guy like Fermin or Urias or something like that. I don't know if this is a, hey, you've got to perform the best of all of these pieces to be on this roster. I think he's already got the upper hand on guys like Jose Fermin, and it's just don't lay eggs.
Yeah, I don't think he's under any pressure in this camp, because I think he's a lock to make the opening day roster, and I think he's as close to a lock as being your starting left fielder as it can be, unless Nathan Church goes on some kind of crazy
that
run.
I don't know about. That's where I do wonder if there's competition.
I think he's their plan to be the starting left fielder. Long as he appears to be adequate in the outfield.
Do we have any evidence of that, though?
I think the fact that they're playing him all over the diamond seems to suggest they want to use him in a super utility role.
Which might be a bench bat. Nathan Church is your left field.
Maybe, but I think, as I brought up yesterday, I don't think they want to be as left-handed heavy. And I'm not sure that I buy what was sold yesterday on Nathan Church as a guy that they seem to view internally as someone that could like surprise and win this opening day job. I didn't say he's a lock for left field. I think he's as close as possible to it. I would think it has to take him not playing good enough defense out there, which he didn't get many opportunities yesterday. And then B, Nathan Church just goes on an unbelievable tear in spring training and then ends up winning that job.
Let me make the devil's advocate case because I'm not so sure about that. If he does not win the job in left field, and I think he has to win it. I mean, I don't know why you would hand it to him going into the start of the regular season. Are you really going to carry him as a bench bat? I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense. I would rather see him get extended playing time in the outfield down in AAA than just serve as a bench bat role here at the major league level. No, I'm talking about Thomas Saggese. Because I think Nathan Church is a guy who makes a ton of sense as a fourth outfielder. That's probably his future role for this team. If he's going to be at the major league level, get him ready to be that late inning defensive replacement, guy who plays a couple of times a week potentially. That's probably long-term what he's going to be. Maybe there's more there, but for right now, maybe that's going to be what he is. Jose Fermin, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe Nathan Church wins that role in left field to start out the season. And Jose Fermin serves in the super utility capacity. He's playing shortstop today. Find out if they can trust him there as the backup shortstop because he's going to need to at least be capable there. He can play all over the infield. We know that. Now he's getting opportunities in the outfield. Church is there to potentially be that backup and center. What's the role for Thomas Saggese where he's going to get the regular at-bats and regular playing time if he doesn't win the opening day left field job? I don't see it. So in that scenario, I think he does start the season at AAA.
I just don't think that's a smart decision.
And I was going to say, if you do put him in AAA, like, when's he coming back? That would be my other counter to that because, like, in a month, no, like, when Newbar's back, like, there's still not a path.
Well, that's what I'm saying. When Newbar's back, now you're really not. Like, I think Thomas
Maybe
Saggese,
after the trade deadline.
And you really want him sitting there for 4 months in the minor leagues? I don't know that he's got much to prove at AAA.
I think Thomas Saggese, I think where acting is Thomas Saggese can be a starting. I think Thomas Saggese is a super utility player. Just like we think Nathan Church is a fourth outfielder, I think Thomas Saggese is the prototypical bench bat that can play in every single position you ask him to.
Maybe, but if he's going to be a super utility player, that almost certainly requires him to play in the outfield. And if he's going to be somebody that you want to play in the outfield, I want him to play. And if he's not going to play regularly up here at the major league level, then allow him to go down to the minor leagues and get that playing experience. T-Bone, you mentioned it. He didn't get many opportunities yesterday in spring training. That's going to be the case still if he's playing twice a week up here. And so I would rather, and if he's going to be the backup, this is all under the presumption that that's the case. If he's going to be a backup in that super utility role up here to start out the season, I would just rather see him play every single day, getting regular at-bats and regular defensive opportunities playing in the outfield down at AAA than wasting away up here at the major league level for a team that's not doing a whole lot. And I do think there's still some stuff that he could fix down at the AAA level, both defensively and as an offensive player. And he's not 27, 28 years old. I think we think of Thomas Saggese as being older than he actually is because he was a pretty fast riser through the minor leagues. He's 24, guys. This is still a very young player. For AAA standards, he was 3.5 years younger than the average player at that level last year. So there's still plenty of time for him to become a contributor at the major league level.
Yeah, I don't see a path to where you send him down to AAA because I think you can still get him enough at-bats as the utility player where you can rotate him around. He could be a DH one day if you wanted to. Guys are going to have days off, so when Weatherholt needs a day off, he plays at second base. When gets a day off, I think you're playing him at shortstop. When Gorman needs a day off, I think you probably play him at third base. And then, like, if the outfield doesn't
Where's
have
Urias playing?
Well, he's a $2 million. He's the signing that I don't fully understand why they made it, but
to fill that capacity that we're talking about with Saggese so he can play every day either in left field as your starter or down at AAA.
And I don't think he should be in AAA. I don't think he's got anything left to prove down there. I think he's got to prove it here at the big league level and get answers on him.
Yeah, I mean, what if he's not the guy that's played the best, though? Wouldn't you want to give the guy that's played the best the opportunity in left field?
In a rebuild, I don't think it really matters. I think in a rebuild, I want to just see what I get out of Thomas Saggese, a former top 100 prospect.
If they believe Nathan Church is flat out right now a better left fielder than Thomas Saggese, you think that it would be stupid to play Nathan Church in left field over Thomas Saggese?
No, I think it would be stupid to send Thomas Saggese down to go get more reps in the outfield. I'd keep him on the bench. Nathan Church isn't going to be your everyday left fielder early on. I think you get reps and then you put Thomas. Maybe,
but
but
he's going to need days off. Like,
yeah.
I still think you can find plenty of at-bats for Saggese.
I think we're talking every third day. Thomas Saggese goes out there and plays that spot.
But is it more valuable for him? I think in this scenario, the conversation for them is really, is it more valuable for Saggese to play every third day up here or to play every single day at AAA? That's going to be the calculus for the Cardinals if he doesn't win that opening day left field job. And to me, that's why there's pressure on him. Because I do think there's a real competition. I think it might be the literal only competition that's currently happening at Cardinal spring training. Because I think the bullpen is basically set. I think the rotation, there's like one spot that's maybe up for grabs, and that might have as much to do with health as it does anything else. You look at the position players, I think every other position is more or less set going into opening day. There might be some questions on Herrera and whether or not he's actually ready to go as a catcher. But beyond that,
well, that's one of those I don't think you find out in spring.
Exactly. So everywhere else, like, I don't know, man, I think I pretty much know where they're starting and who's going to be playing and where they're going to be playing. Left field's my one question mark right now. And I think it's a real competition between Church, Saggese. Maybe you want to throw in one of those non-roster invitees into the mix if you really feel like one of them could win that job. And for me, like, I think all of them are at least in the mix for that spot. You add in Urias, who they decided to sign late in spring training. They clearly have felt as though they had a need for that guy coming on their bench. I don't know, man. I think Saggese might be the one that ends up as the odd man looking out, or odd man looking in.
Yeah, I just think it's one of those where I'm with Alex. I don't think you send him down, because I think if you send him down, I think you lock in, you're not seeing him for 4 months.
Congrats on doing something that I said yesterday won't happen this Cardinal season.
Make you mad?
Me getting angry about something. That's just dumb, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would have no
and to be
issue
fair,
with
like,
it, really.
I'm not even sure that I'm convinced that Saggese's like a future big leaguer along with Nathan Church, but I would much rather take the chance on Saggese
I think
than
he's
Church.
a bench guy that goes in and plays every third day. I think that's his role.
I kind of agree with you, Alex. I think the path to getting there, though, is what's interesting to me. And this is T-Bone. I know this is just something that doesn't interest you, which is fine.
T-Bone doesn't care about path. He wants the wins or losses.
I do think if he's going to be that super utility guy that can play a little bit of everywhere, I would, for me, my own sensibilities on the matter, I would lean more toward, all right, let's go ahead and get you that experience in the outfield now. So that way you're not learning on the job at the big league level as a backup. So you're getting more of those in-game reps. So it's not as much of a learning curve whenever you are in the role that we're talking about for the Cardinals when they're trying to win again. And that, I think, is more likely to happen at AAA than at the major league level if he doesn't win the job coming out of camp. All of this could be fixed by him just playing well. If he plays well, none of this matters, and he becomes your starting left fielder, and everything just fits in accordingly. But if he doesn't win that job, stuff gets a little bit more interesting as we get further into Cardinals spring training. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Bradford Bruns back at the studio for us today. We're broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center, and we will be joined by Mike McKenna following a win coming up here in about 15 minutes. But next, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything here on 101 ESPN.
You can now listen to 101 ESPN on demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company. Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. You're tuned into BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's Questions and Answers on 101 ESPN.
All right, it's time for 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, go ahead and get them in now on the Air Comfort Service text line. From the 636, Alex, I loved Finley's play last night. Who goes out when Thomas comes back tomorrow?
Your guess is as good as mine. I wonder if they look at Dvorsky and say, hey, kid, you've played a lot of hockey. Take a game off. Berggren, I don't know how you pull Berggren out of the lineup or how well he has played. Maybe it's one of the fourth-line guys, not Finley. Maybe it's Walker, Toropchenko, and Braden Shen drops down to play. Braden Shen drops down to play fourth line. This is the thing. Like, they're not breaking up the Buchnevich line. Montgomery said as much. There's no way in hell they break up the Pius-Suter line after they just put 9 points up yesterday. The line that wasn't very good for you was Dvorsky, Shen, and Snuggerud. And I have to imagine some of that is just the exhaustion from a Dvorsky for how much hockey he's played. So I think tomorrow there's a chance Dvorsky doesn't play. Long term, there's going to be a trade because you're not healthy scratching Dvorsky for a long set of time. You're not healthy scratching Berggren. You're not healthy scratching Suter. So you're either healthy scratching one of the fourth line guys and a top 9 guy plays fourth line, or you make trades.
My guess would be Berggren.
That's my guess.
The guy that comes out.
I don't think so. I don't think Jim Montgomery won't break up a line that puts 9 points together.
I don't know if they want to sit Dvorsky, though. Like, that's the other thing. I get what you're saying. Like, I think it's fair. I mean, look at what they do.
That much hockey.
What?
He hasn't played that much hockey.
I mean, he played all year
over the Olympics.
Yeah, played over the Olympics. Like, he's up there.
Played like what, 5 games in the Olympics?
That's a
5 more
pretty
games
significant amount of hockey.
Berggren.
I know, but
for a guy who hasn't really gone through a whole NHL
5
season
games in 3 weeks.
Yeah, but the NHL season is a lot more taxing than an AHL season. AHL season, you play 3 games in 3 days and then you're off for 4.
No, that's cool.
The first NHL season is not an easy task.
Totally cool. You got to learn it, and the only way to learn it is by going out and doing it.
But
I wouldn't scratch him. But if they did it, I would understand the reasoning behind it. I'm with BK. What I would do is I would pull Berggren out, and then I would bump Suter to the wing, and then your top line becomes Holloway, Thomas, Berggren. Or sorry, Thomas, Holloway, and Suter. Yeah. So you make a trade, and then when you make a trade, then Berggren's back.
I think they bide their time for 3 games until Saturday or till post Friday.
I'll trade Thomas before the game on Saturday.
No.
Now we don't even have to worry about it.
Not going to do that. I just don't see them breaking up a line that produced 9 points yesterday.
314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. From the 618, guys, with the Mahomes injury this season and the Chiefs, how the Chiefs perceive themselves, do you think they should be targeting one of Kyler, Tua, or Malik Willis? If Tua becomes a free agent, I do think he could be interesting on a veteran minimum deal where he makes basically nothing because he's still getting paid by the Miami Dolphins. I could see that maybe making some sense for the Chiefs. The guy that I'm really curious about, Anthony Richardson's probably getting traded this offseason. I wonder if he goes on the Sam Darnold plan, where he becomes a backup quarterback for a year somewhere, tries to learn in a good situation, and then maybe tests himself somewhere else. I could see the Chiefs saying, hey, we'll give you a conditional 6th-round pick for Anthony Richardson, who has 0 value across the league right now. And they bet on a young, big-armed, athletic kid who can sit behind Patrick Mahomes. And if he's got to play a game or 2 this year, they could make it work with him. So I do think they're going to target some kind of a backup quarterback. Willis, no chance.
He's going to be a starter.
Kyler, I think, will be a starter somewhere. Tua, maybe. Anthony Richardson, maybe.
Yeah, if I'm one of those guys, I would go take a backup role and play a few games for Kansas City to try and reset my career rather than go somewhere else and be a starter and fail again.
I think it would make sense for Richardson to do it. I just wouldn't bet on him. I don't think he can play. Tua is one that would be interesting. I think he would probably side on getting a starting job somewhere because if he's going to get probably minimum, some team will offer him probably minimum or a little bit more to start for them for some of these bad teams. Now, it'll be an interesting question to Alex's point. Do you want to go behind a terrible offensive line like he will, potentially really get hurt again?
Because it's rare for a quarterback to be able to fail twice and still get another shot.
Yeah. The only guy that's really done it is, Darnold?
Yep.
I'll tell you that. I don't know.
Where did he fail twice?
You could make an argument that Baker
Carolina.
did.
Oh, yeah, Baker's another one. Yeah, Baker failed it. I guess he failed at Cleveland at the end. I thought that was interesting.
I agree with you.
But yeah, Darnold would be the one.
He disappointed relative to number one overall expectations, I guess would be the
That's fair.
way to frame it. But everybody's disappointed in Cleveland. I don't know that it was necessarily.
He went to Cleveland. I mean,
it's hard to find a guy that really met expectations.
That's a free space in bingo. Like, nobody's going to care about that one.
314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, if the Cardinals were to somehow match or surpass their total wins from last season, is it fair to say that would make Mo look even worse as far as his legacy is concerned? Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know how much this season really impacts that, but I think people have pretty much made up their minds at this point on what.
I think the offseason made Mo's legacy look worse than it already was. And then I think moving from there, if you go out there and you perform well, it does not, especially if guys like Richard Fitz is part of the reason why you perform. Hunter Dobbins comes up and does that. It's not going to look. Nolan Gorman has success because he's an everyday third baseman for you. It's not going to look pretty.
Yeah, I don't think anything that happens this season will play towards Mo's legacy, quote unquote. I think that's already been determined, as BK kind of said. You can make an argument of like maybe they make these trades last off season. I think that one's fair on Arenado. I don't know if it was fair on Contreras or Gray going into last season, and I don't know that you get these kind of guys that they got in these trades in return. And if like Gorman starts hitting, I don't know that that is a shot towards Mo. Maybe you could argue that since it was that they didn't move Arenado. I think what the lasting legacy of Mo is going to be is what Heim did, which is looked at the roster and said, this isn't good enough. I need to tear this completely down.
From the manager, Lou Brown. Guys, do you think 70 to 75 wins is reasonable for the Cardinals this year? Or do you think there's a real possibility that it could be fewer than 70?
I don't think you get below 70.
I think 70 to 75 is a pretty good range.
That's kind of my cutoff. I don't think you go below 70. If you go below 70, we're talking 100 losses, and I don't think they're a 100-loss team.
I agree.
I think you got at least young enough talent that can keep yourself competitive out there.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything if you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise. Coming up next, we're going to call an audible. Mike McKenna will join us in studio coming up at 12:30. Had a little traffic on his way in here to the show, but he's going to join us coming up at 12:30. Next, it sure feels like the Blues are planning to go in a different direction than with Robert Thomas. We'll talk about the latest on his possible leaving St. Louis and what it means for the direction of the Blues next year on 101 ESPN.
Jamie Rivers here, and it is time for a New Jersey giveaway. This month, we've got your shot to score an autographed Blues jersey signed by the captain, Braden Shen. It's the old Blues jersey, which is now the alternate jersey, and it is a beauty. Jamie's jersey giveaway is presented by St. Luke's, ranked number 3 in the nation for cardiovascular care by Modern Healthcare. Visit stlukes-stl.com. Blues talk? Check out the Last Minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Donnie Fandango, and Jeremy Rutherford on 101 ESPN. The guys bring you the latest news and nuggets on your St. Louis Blues.
The Last Minute Blues podcast is presented by Blue Note Roofing. Roofing, siding, and gutters. Your St. Louis roofing experts. Visit BlueNoteRoofingSTL.com for free inspection. Watch or listen to the Last Minute Blues podcast now on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center, presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
We need to talk about Robert Thomas. This is starting to feel real.
This is like the movie Encanto. We don't talk about Bruno. We don't talk about Robert Thomas. No.
We're going to have to, because it sure feels, let's move on. It sure feels as though Robert Thomas could be on his way out here in St. Louis. And Alex, that is not something that I was expecting coming into this season. I would say over the last month or two, we've become more open to the idea. I'm still very hesitant to do something like this for a number of different reasons. One, he's 26 years old. Mm-hmm. This is not some guy that's in his early to mid 30s that you're moving on from because the timelines don't match up. That would make sense to me. It's also not somebody who has just completely failed in his time with the Blues. It's not a situation similar to like a Nolan Gorman with the Cardinals or Tyler O'Neill with the Cardinals, where it was a one-off and then, this is not the player we expected him to be. No, Robert Thomas has been, even if not living up to all of the expectations, he's been a productive, quality NHL player basically since the moment that he stepped onto the ice for the Blues as a 19-year-old. And now there is real talk, both locally and nationally, that the Blues and Robert Thomas might be heading for a split. There was a report that came out, speculation, whatever you want to call it, from Nick Kyprios, who said this is a situation that still could be pushed to the summer, but overall it does not appear that there's going to be a long-term marriage between the Blues and Robert Thomas anymore. That was said on Sportsnet. Alex over in The Athletic, Jeremy Rutherford, had his update yesterday on what he's hearing about Robert Thomas, Binnington, and other Blues ahead of the trade deadline. I'm going to try to summarize here. You should read the full article. There's a ton of context that's necessary here. And I think reading between the lines, there's a lot you can get from this piece. But my biggest takeaway is the Blues appear to be going to players and saying, are you interested in being involved in this? And I don't know exactly what that means. I don't know if they're being sold, hey, this is going to be a full rebuild, or it's going to be a retool, or here's what we see for you. I don't know. But maybe the player and the team are both deciding it's best for everybody to go in their separate directions. Alex, what would that tell you about the Blues' direction? And how are you feeling right now about this overall situation with Robert Thomas?
Well, first, let's start with Thomas, because I think a lot of people's reaction, including mine, is you can't move on from a 26-year-old centerman who is a number one center on a lot of teams in the NHL. And I stand by that statement. Like, you just don't do that. If they're saying we need to have a healthy split, they obviously have things behind closed doors that we know nothing about that they're not happy with. They don't know if that's the guy that leads you to where you're trying to get to. And again, I'm just arguing the other side of this. For the people that have been complaining about the Blues being bad for the last 4 years, just like I heard you guys talk about on Tuesday of like, hey, we talk about the leadership being bad. Braden Shen's a part of the leadership. We're acting as if the Blues are inconsistent. Guys, Robert Thomas is the guy that eats the most ice time, plays in all scenarios, and they've been inconsistent.
And he's got an A on his chest.
Got an A on his chest. So, yes, you don't want to move on from that, but you have to ask yourself the question, is he the guy we think he is? And I would imagine if the Blues are having these conversations, and again, we don't know. We can only go off of, I trust Jeremy Rutherford's reporting,
yes.
And that's the way I read it, to where it was, hey, look, this is the direction we're going, Robert. Are you on board with it? And I got to be honest, I don't think Thomas, Kyrou, or Buchnevich have any appetite for being a part of a rebuild. And that's the second part of your question you asked. What does it tell me? It tells me they're taking a step back for a couple of years. It tells me they are shifting their direction from, let's see if we can compete now, 26, 27-year-old Kyrou and Thomas with a couple of older guys, but younger guys. You're trying to put everybody together. My wife loves It's a Small World ride in Disney World. You're trying to make It's a Small World where you got the young, the older, and the middle guys, and you're trying to make a great team. They're not going to do that anymore. They're saying, nope, everybody over the age of 27, 28 years old.
25
years old, although Holloway will be 25 next year, and I would imagine they'd look at Holloway.
25, though, because Thomas is 26.
Yeah, I mean, 26, he'd be 27 next season.
Too old for this, right?
But regardless, I think I don't know if, 26, I think they'd be fine if it's a 26-year-old. It's just, are you the right type of 26-year-old? They're looking at the age bracket of Snuggerud, Dvorsky, Carbonneau, Jiricek, Broberg, Holloway, Neighbors.
That's a rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, call it what you want. I think they're going to do they'll call it another 3-year retool.
That's a rebuild.
The same thing that he told us when they said, well, we want to do the same timeline as the LA Kings, 3 years, be back into it. They're going to do that same thing. You're kicking the can into the next core. And not to get long-winded with this, but they made a mistake. If they're saying that Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou, we need a split, this isn't the right marriage, you done messed up, Ron, because you handed the reins to those guys when you said O'Reilly and Tarasenko and Perron were phasing out of this is the new leadership. They weren't ready. They weren't the guys to carry you to where you needed to get to. So now you're going to hand it over to the next wave and say, you need to be the guys that can carry us.
You could sell me on the LA Kings timeline when you had Bennington, Parayko, Shin, Booch, Falk, all these guys that are
early
28 to 30 plus.
20s.
Yeah, the guys that are legitimate NHL contributors that have already proven the ability to carry a team not only through the regular season, but into the playoffs. If you don't have any of those guys around and you're just building around players under the age of 26, that is a full rebuild. That is a 3 to 5 year where going out there on a hope and a prayer, and man, we have no idea what this is going to look like for the next few years. We might continue to be as bad as they are this year, where it's no longer talking about top 10 picks. We're aiming for that number 1 overall selection. That is a very different direction than what they did last time around, and it would scare the hell out of me if that's the direction they decide to go. You could convince me on Kyrou. You could convince me. You don't even have to do any convincing. Like, it's probably the right move to move on from Shin and Falk and maybe even Benner. Moving on from Thomas, that's the kind of move where if you get this wrong, you spend the next 5 years trying to find the next Robert Thomas the way that you did with Alex Pietrangelo, where you spent the next 5 years now, 6 years now, looking for, man, we screwed up with that guy. Can we find the next one? And you might have with Broberg. But since then, you haven't been able to.
The hard part with that comp, though, is Alex Pietrangelo was viewed as a top defenseman in the National Hockey League.
And you're in a winning window. I think if you go into a rebuild, I don't think you're okay with waiting 5 to 10 years to find the next guy.
But if you don't trade Robert Thomas, I'm not convinced you're in a rebuild. This is the canary in the coal mine. This is the move that ultimately determines the direction of the franchise. What you do with Thomas can dictate that to a large degree. If you decide to trade Thomas, trade everything. Get rid of Kyrou, get rid of Shin, get rid of Falk, get rid of Fowler, get rid of Benner, get rid of all of it. Anybody over the age of 25 prior to the start of next season should be gone. You don't have to do all of that at the deadline, but it is time for a true fire sale if that's the decision that you make with Thomas, because now you don't have a number 1 center, and we're building around these young guys, and let's see what it looks like. It's come grow with us time again. If you keep Thomas, all right, now we can look at some of these other pieces and have the conversation. But he is the one. He is the guy that dictates all of that.
And I think Steen is the one that's saying it's time to rebuild this thing. I think Steen is the one that is driving that conversation as the guy that takes over. Again, this happens in any sport across at any point. You see a new GM take over. What's he trying to convince ownership of? He tries to convince them of a rebuild. Why? It gives them 5 years of safety. And if you are going to go into a retool, you might approach a guy like Jordan Kyrou and say, like, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's who our team's supposed to. If you're going to go into a retool, I don't even think you approach Robert Thomas, because I think even if he was frustrated, hey, man, you're under contract for 5 years. We still want you to be a part of this. We don't even need to approach it because we're not moving you. And I think them approaching him, maybe they still don't move him, but I think it signals at least somebody in the front office believes the right direction is a rebuild and tear it down to the
Alex,
studs.
it surprised me a lot that a former NHLer as competitive as Alexander Steen would want to do that.
Yeah, I don't.
It really surprises me if that's the direction he wants to go.
I don't think Steen has any appetite to take over a team and say, let's rebuild this. We're going to argue that if they trade Robert Thomas, then it's a full-blown rebuild and they're going to be awful for the next 5 years. I can also make the same argument that you could turn it around quick. It just comes down to, do you accomplish the right pieces in return?
I think Steen's looking at this, and if they are going to Thomas and they are deciding to make that move, typically I agree. You would think a former NHLer wouldn't do it. I think Steen looks at this and says, I don't think I can build around this.
Or he looks at Thomas and says, I can't build around that.
And I think that's what he's decided.
That's my big question is, how much of this is just about, like, when I read this piece by JR, I had an intrusive thought of, is this about getting rid of all the guys over the age of 25, or is this about getting rid of Robert Thomas?
Yeah.
And is he saying, hey, I don't think that's a winning player. I don't know. This is me speculating. It's an intrusive
Steen,
thought.
by the way, would know him pretty well because he did play with him at the NHL level. Now, he was young and he could grow, but Steen's got at least an idea of what he was when he first came up.
You're looking at the next core of these guys. You're looking at it saying, these guys have the will to compete that we want. So let's put them as the faces of this team moving forward, and let's move on from who hasn't been able to get that job done in terms of if it's Thomas and Kyrou. Like, the way that JR put it in his piece from his source that said, like, if Thomas is going, it's going to be the equivalent of the top half of the first round and return 3 pieces. When the Canucks traded Quinn Hughes, they got Zeev Buium, who was a 12th overall pick. They got Marco Rossi, who was a 9th overall pick. And then they got a Liam Ogren, who was a 18th overall pick. Like, that's the type of return. All 3 of those guys, by the way, had played at the NHL level when they were traded. That's the type of return that they're looking for. Now, I have to imagine that if the Blues are trading Robert Thomas, because Robert Thomas doesn't have a unrestricted free agency facing him in 2 years and gets to decide where he wants to go. Thomas is locked up. Mm-hmm. You're asking for more if you're Doug Armstrong. And that's why if I can argue that, look, if you trade Robert Thomas, you're going to be bad. I can also argue that if you trade Robert Thomas and you feel he's not the right piece to lead the group that's moving forward, because if they trade Schenn, somebody's getting the next captaincy. And my gut would say it's either Robert Thomas or Jake Neighbors.
It should be Jake Neighbors.
And if it's Jake Neighbors, as a front office, you're probably saying, okay, well, how's everybody going to accept that?
And that's where you say we've all got to be men in this locker room.
Exactly.
And it's on you to respond to that the right way. And if you can't, put your big boy pants on. Yeah. Let's go. Let's go play some hockey, guys. Let's go win.
And sometimes that's...
You can reconcile by winning.
And sometimes that's not an easy thing to do. Like, I mean, Vancouver is the perfect example of a team that had everything they wanted, and they chose to get rid of the wrong guy. They thought JT Miller was the problem because Pettersson was younger and said, this is a number 1 center who put up 100 points. We can't move on from this guy. And I've heard multiple people say, everybody around that team knew you traded the wrong guy. Everyone around that team said, you don't trade JT Miller, you trade Elias Pettersson, because Pettersson's the one with the attitude problem, not JT Miller. And what happened when they traded JT Miller? Quinn Hughes got upset and then wanted out. And now they're talking about trading Pettersson.
I would say the difference between that situation and this one is, in that scenario, you had Elias Pettersson. In the Blue situation, what do you have? Like, there isn't a choose between this guy or this guy. I thought that would be Kyrou versus Thomas. You make the decision on which one of these guys do you decide to trade at this year's deadline. I would move on from Kyrou, and I'm somebody that supports Kyrou. I think he could go on and be successful elsewhere. I would not make this move with Robert Thomas right now. I would wait. We talked about this before. I would wait until you get to the draft. If you get a top 2 pick,
no, I'm not doing this at the deadline.
They might, though. They might.
No, I don't think this isn't a deadline move.
I think he's listening at the deadline. I think he's
listening, but nobody is going to pay. Somebody's going to have to trade a guy off of the NHL roster to get Robert Thomas. And I don't know if another team is, like, let's say LA Kings right now.
Maybe not, but if they're having these conversations now, it also means they're probably going to have them again in the summer.
Yeah, and I think they will, no matter what.
And that, to me, is like, I would not do that then or now. I would wait until you see a year of him with whoever that top 2, hopefully, top 2 overall selection is. If you don't get a top 2 pick, then have the conversations. But if you're having a
top defense, I'm going to lose my mind.
If you're going to have a top 2 overall selection and you finally get that winger in place that could be the legit go-to scorer alongside Robert Thomas, I want to see that first. I want to find out what that looks like before you make a decision that you cannot take back. Robert Thomas is not going to lose value by holding on to him through next season. He's still going to be viewed around the league as, at a minimum, a top 2 center for a contender, and he's not getting more expensive. Like, he's locked in, man. He's got the same no trade protection now that he will have this time next year. There's not urgency to make this move right now, which goes back to, then why are they trying to potentially make this move?
Because is he locked in mentally? I mean, that
it feels like a move where they're saying, we want to do this.
And that's why, I mean, we could sit here and say, like, you can't do this because he's a point per game player. They know more about this player than we do. You could say he's locked in contractually, but if he knows that they're going to be going into, look, we're going to take a step back. We're going to start trending towards these kids. So when you're 30, when we're probably ready to compete for a Stanley Cup, if he's not locked in mentally for the now, then it doesn't make sense to keep a guy like that who is going to be the number 1 guy out there.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, we want to get your guys' thoughts on this. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll talk a little bit more about it coming up here in just a bit. Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie, next year on 101 ESPN.
It's time for another moment in Blues history.
On this day back in 2021, the Blues would score 7 on the San Jose Sharks. San Jose scored 2 in the first period. Marco Scandella, the lone goal scorer, but then 3 goals in the second by Sammy Blais, Braden Shen, and Zach Sanford. And then in the third period, a shorthanded one by Mackenzie McEachran, Ryan O'Reilly, and Marco Scandella's second of the game.
This date in Blues history is powered by Classic Air Care.
Make your life more comfortable for all your HVAC, plumbing, and electrical needs. ClassicAirCare.com.
nominate yourself to be the Morning After Listener of the Month, and you could be selected and score a Form Energy prize pack. Sign up now at 101ESPN.com or TMASTL.com. The TMA Listener of the Month Club is presented by Form Energy. We do the work. Broadcasting live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN. We're going between the pipes with former NHL goaltender Mike McKenna.
Mike McKenna. How do you like me now?
Between the Pipes is refreshed by Macadoodle Spirits, fine wine, beer, and cigars. Now open in Darden Prairie.
Clarity, Alex. We get to talk to our guy Mike McKenna following a Blues 5-1 victory last night.
I didn't think it was possible.
Against the Seattle Kraken. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline. Mike McKenna joining us now here on the show. He's a former NHL goalie. He's joining us after the Blues win. And Dylan Holloway puts together a hat trick. Mike, appreciate the time, man. How you doing today?
And I'm doing great, aside from the fact that I wish Highway 70 was about 6 lanes wide from the Missouri River all the way to Wentzville and beyond. But beyond that, guys, a Blues win, Dylan Holloway with a hat trick, and the fact that Jonathan Berggren is now Jonathan Berggren, I couldn't be happier for a soft J in my life, guys. It's a Blues win, and we're on a Friday. This is awesome.
It's unfortunate that Berggren didn't play in the Olympics for Team Sweden because they put out there the player pronouncing their name in their own native tongue, and we would have really found out how Jonathan or however you want to pronounce it is really pronounced.
It's awesome. It just reminds me so much of Anchorman, where it's like, I might go yogging. It's a soft J. That's exactly what I could think of. But, man, awesome game from the Blues last night, though.
It was really impressive. And, Mike, it's going to kind of fall into the backdrop of a lot of our conversation today. But I do want to start with it because, it's top of mind coming off of a game like that. We opened up the show today talking about Dylan Holloway and what he brings to this lineup. We spent really most of the last calendar year talking about him and what he can potentially be at the NHL level. In your mind, Mike, what was different for him last night compared to what we had seen for most of this season?
Well, just look at how he protected the puck last night. And it's funny that he ended up having a hat trick, and I think one of his best plays on the evening was the feed that he made over on Pia Suter's goal. Where he was so aware, he was so comfortable with his health that you could tell he wasn't hesitant. And it feels like watching Holloway all season long. There was, if he's a six-gear transmission, it felt like he had 5 gears most of the season. And last night felt like he had all 6 gears. And I keep going back to how he protects the puck and commands space on the ice. And you really saw that. He was finding soft areas. He was hard on the forecheck. The pass that he made, thing of beauty. But I just think that there's so much more, especially with a player that you can play on the left side, the right side. There's versatility to Holloway's game. And when he's healthy, when he's strong, he's a guy that can keep the puck on his stick in the offensive zone for the better part of, 20, 30 seconds when you combine teammates. And I think it just gave the Blues an advantage that they weren't chasing the game at all in any way. They were confident when they entered the offensive zone, and I think Holloway had a lot to do with that.
Another guy that I know a lot of people, including BK and Tanner, are really honed in on is Pavel Buchnevich as the center position. I think we've talked about this a lot, Mike, but it seems like Jim Montgomery is going to continue this leeway of Buch as a centerman moving forward. Does anything jump off the page at you watching him play that position versus what we saw as a winger earlier on this season?
More speed, more energy, not just that, but also he's just touching the puck more. I don't know. Do you disagree? I think Pavel Buchnevich, since he went to center, has touched the puck more this season than he has on the wing all year. That's
Agreed.
my belief. And when you've got somebody who on the wing was struggling to score, was struggling to put up points, typically wingers need some help. They need somebody to get them the puck. because you're looking at your pivot, and that pivot, Robert Thomas. Well, Robert's out of the lineup. When Booch goes to center, he's going to have it more often. He can drive play, and it's a transition. I mean, you have to win faceoffs. You have to be able to go all over the ice. But I think it's really opened him up, and just by, let's say he even goes back to the wing. Let's say Thomas comes back and Booch goes back to the wing. I think he's going to carry some more confidence with it because he's been able to have the puck on his blade that much more. I mean, the pass he made to Kyrou last night, did any of you guys think he was going to pass that puck?
No. Well, I thought he was going to shoot it and then go wide of the net and then come out of the zone. That's typical how the season has gone.
Let's not go negative on this. They won the game.
I'm sorry, Mike.
But that's what happens when you're playing with confidence. And when you're touching the puck a lot is that you don't feel like you have to do it all yourself. So it's kind of naturally come to Pavel Buchnevich now that as a center, you will touch the puck more. You're going to have it you're going to play with speed with it more often. You don't have to do it all. And you also don't have to be pinpoint precise and perfect on everything. So I think he's put pucks through space more often for his teammates in good areas. But I also think he's just seeing the ice better. And again, I don't think he's a full-term center solution. But I do think that when Thomas comes back in the lineup, this is going to give him some confidence that he can play with and carry forward.
We're talking to Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie. He joins us each and every Friday on behalf of Macadoodles. Mike, we've spent so much time over the last couple of months talking about what Braden Schen's future looks like here in St. Louis, what Justin Falk's future looks like, what the potential market could be for a guy like Jordan Binnington. We've even talked about Jordan Kyrou quite a bit with you. We have not spent a ton of time talking about Robert Thomas and whether or not he is a part of the core going forward, because I think we all kind of assumed the answer was obviously yes. He's locked in long-term. He's 26 years old. At a minimum, for a really good team, he's a number 2 center. And on this team, he's a clear-cut number 1 center. That is now seemingly coming into question. There have been some reports in North America with Nick Kiprio saying this is a situation that could be pushed to the summer, but overall, it does not appear that there will be a long-term marriage between the Blues and Robert Thomas anymore. There was a piece yesterday from JR about what the future looks like for those two sides. Mike, if you were in Alexander Steen and Doug Armstrong's shoes, would you be listening to offers on Robert Thomas prior to next week's trade deadline?
You listen to everything. But I still believe Robert Thomas is a big piece of the St. Louis Blues. I really feel that so much of this is a smokescreen to get to other players on the Blues that are going to be available. I mean, the fourth period being a media entity is talking about Colton Parayko and the Bruins and Thomas and the Bruins. And they listed everybody on the Blues being with the Bruins having interest in them. I mean, come on. Like, not everybody on the Blues is available here unless it's for a crazy price. And if you're going to get Robert Thomas, you're looking, Robert Thomas is going to get you first. You better get 2 first-round picks and a solid positional player on top of that if you're going to deal Robert Thomas. How many teams in the NHL are going to give that up right now? I don't see many. I have a hard time believing that he's really on the trade block unless it's a crazy offer. I think there's ancillary pieces that make a lot more sense for the Blues to move on from. I hate that Braden Schenn is probably in that position, but he likely is. Justin Falk the same way. But centers are the piece that you just cannot win without in the NHL. And look at the growth, guys, of Robert Thomas, even in the last couple of years, and how he's started to play defensively, how he's taken what he learned from Ryan O'Reilly and impacted his own game. And you have a mature player there. Even if he becomes a second-line center at $8+ million in the NHL today, that's a pretty good deal. The problem is the Blues need 3 centers to do that. And I don't think that Buchnevich and Dvorsky are the 2 that can replace a Thomas at center. And if you're trying to draft a center, you're still looking 2, 3, 4 years out from that player reaching their maturity. So I don't know, man. Rumors are so funny to me because honestly, I think you've got like Falk, Kyrou, and some other names available from the Blues. If you're talking Thomas, come on, a Parayko, no chance. A Thomas, it's got to be a massive offer. And I don't know who's going to give that up right now.
I don't know either. It seems more like an offseason move. If, let's hypothetically say, Mike, that they do look at it and say, hey, we need to move on from Thomas, move on from Jordan Kyrou, Shen, Falk, the ones that we're talking about at the deadline. Do you see any scenario if those guys aren't a part of this team that they can be competitive or avoid going into a 3 to 5 year rebuild?
It's the perfect question. You're looking another 2 or 3 years down the road. And this Blues team, let's be objective here. If they had not been crushed by injuries for much of this season, and we saw the Dylan Holloway effect last night, that's just one player. If he'd been healthy, if the rest of the team had been healthy, if Robert Thomas has been healthy, this is still a St. Louis Blues team that is absolutely in contention for a playoff spot, knocking on the door or possibly in it, looking for the growth that they've had. So you have to look at that and think we're still not far off. And we've seen this season, especially the growth of Dalibor Dvorsky. Jimmy Snuggerud's coming along. He's only going to be better next season. No question in my mind. Jonathan Berggren, okay, filling roles on the back end there, deeper in your lineup. I think there's actually an argument that this season has led to some great development of Blues players in the face of the adversity that they've had with injuries that could lead them to be good next season. Why would you deal off some of your best players in a Thomas who's irreplaceable to kick the can further down the road 2, 3, 4 years? I think you could handle moving Falk. I think you can handle moving Shen. I don't think you could handle moving Thomas. If you move Kyrou, you're hoping that you can get something back in that trade as well. I think that's manageable. But you can't sell the farm this year because the Blues, if they'd been healthy to me, still are not a team that was far off. They have a great coach. They have excellent goaltending. And I think that puts them in position again next season to contend.
Mike McKenna will join us a week from today when the NHL trade deadline takes place. We'll be talking it all over with him then as we get more and more information on what the Blues' plans are leading into this year's deadline. We'll do so on behalf of the fine folks over at Macadoodles. Mike, what can people expect when they walk through the doors today at Macadoodles?
Well, you can find barrel picks. You can find new wine. You can also find coming next week Willie Nelson's Remedy. Ladies and gentlemen, that is his THC canned cocktails along with his large format 5 and 10 milligram drinks. So Willie Nelson coming to town. We will have him at Macadoodles next week. But I tell you what Macadoodles really likes also, guys, Blue Note Cup. And I got to tell you this, we didn't get a chance to touch on it, but if you're a hockey fan, if you love youth hockey, get to the Centene Community Ice Center this weekend. Saturday and Sunday, the Blue Note Cup is happening. It's youth hockey at its finest. It's pressure. It's fun. It's kids giving it their all to win a cup just like your Stanley Cup champions, like the Blues in 2019. I'm lucky enough. I've got 2 daughters playing in finals, guys. I can't tell you how proud I am of these kids and their teams and everything else, but it's something you don't want to miss. So don't miss the Blue Note Cup. If you want to come to Macadoodles and find yourself all those THC drinks that we have, the widest selection in St. Charles, we've got them. You want to find Willie Nelson? We're going to have him next week. We are also going to have amazing deals starting March 1st on everything Irish. All the Irish whiskey, all the Guinness.
Nice.
He's Mike McKenna. I apologize, Mike. There's even more.
Off.
There's even more.
No.
Just when you think he said all there is to possibly say about what they have at Macadoodles, there is more available for you there. Mike, appreciate the time as always, man. Enjoy this weekend. Best of luck to your daughters. We'll talk with you again next week.
All right. Talk to you then. Thanks, fellas.
You got it. That's Mike McKenna. Appreciate his time as always here on 101 ESPN. I want to continue this conversation on the other side, Alex, because there's a ton of reaction that we're getting in on the Air Comfort Service text line at 314-399-9646. There's also a report from Boston on who was in attendance for the Bruins game last night and potential interest on their side for a player like Robert Thomas. We'll get into all of that more coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Stupiracy. It's the podcast where stupidity and conspiracy collide. And in our latest episode, Riz and I step into one of the most infamous locations in modern conspiracy culture. Bohemian Grove, the secluded Northern California retreat long rumored to host secret meetings of the world's most powerful men. Stupiracy Season 2 is out now, including our latest episode examining Bohemian Grove, a place that fascinated critics and skeptics for decades. Listen wherever you get your podcasts or watch on YouTube. Presented by CarStar, your auto body repair experts locally owned with a nationwide guarantee. Visit carstar.com.
Alex, the NFL Combine has been good to me over on the Underdog app. Hit my first 2 plays in the NFL Combine. They've got a bunch for you over there on the Underdog app with 40-yard dash times, and I'm going back to the well. I had a $5 bonus entry over on the Underdog app when I opened it up earlier today. I'm going Jeremiah Love slower than a 4.39. Man, running in the 4.4s is really good. If that's considered to be quote-unquote slow, I'll take it over on the Underdog app. I also like Caleb Downs to go slower than 4.45, and Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon, to go faster than a 4.49. Put those 3 plays together, almost 6-1 odds on the Underdog app. You can get in on the action for the NFL Combine as well.
Whether it's Combine action, NBA action, NHL action, it's easy to use over on the Underdog app. You pick your favorite player, favorite stats, higher or lower. Get your entries right, went up to 5,000 times your cash. So download the Underdog app today. Use promo code BKO. Score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. Promo code BKO. Underdog, make plays, win money. Must be 18 plus and present in Missouri. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/playing. Get terms _DFS_.html for details. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-MY-RESET or visit www.ncpgambling.org.
St. Louis Blues hockey can be heard exclusively on 101 ESPN. Get the info you need before and after every Blues game with a First Community pre- and post-game show. First Community Credit Union.
Take your best shot with First Community and presented by Scott Lee Heating Company and Urban Chestnut Brewing Company.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
Holloway's Hattie propels Blues to victory. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Dylan Holloway recorded his second career hat trick, and St. Louis coasted past Seattle 5-1 Thursday night. Pius Suter adding a goal, plus 2 helpers as STL ended its 3-game losing streak. Struggling New Jersey hits town tomorrow. Right now, Grapefruit League action pitting the Cardinals against Juan Soto's Mets. Quinn Matthews making start number 1 of spring training 1-0 New York through 2 innings. NFL scouting combine drills also continuing in Indianapolis. DBs, including former Tiger Toriano Pride Jr., will begin those on-field workouts shortly. MU basketball visiting Mississippi State this weekend. Your SportsCenter update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Broadcasting live from the EMP Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, we've been spending most of the 12 o'clock hour talking about the Blues trade deadline decisions. We're about a week away from the NHL trade deadline, and the real decision to me, Alex, comes down to what's the plan with Robert Thomas? If you're going to keep him here, cool. I'm totally good with that. That's the side I would personally lean toward. He's at a minimum, top 6 center. I think can be a number 1 center for a good team if you've got a really good number 2 paired with him. And he's a point-per-game producer when healthy. He has not yet had a legit sniper or go-to guy on his wing really the entire time that he's been here in St. Louis. And I'd like to see that if they get a potential top 2 overall selection this offseason. I would like to play this thing out a little bit longer. There are seemingly some reports or speculation, however you want to look at it, though. The Blues are at least listening on this. And that's the way that I would categorize it as of today. There was a piece over in the Daily Faceoff. This comes from Anthony DeMarco, who is he's based in Philadelphia, but he has sources all across the NHL. He asked the question, are the stars aligning for the Bruins and the Blues to make a major trade? The Blues had a couple of assistant GMs, Tim Taylor being one, Chiarelli being another, that were in attendance for a Bruins game last night. They don't just send assistant GMs to random hockey games across the NHL at this time of the year. That happened for a reason. There's clearly some level of interest.
Yeah, typically those are just professional scouts that go on those trips.
Exactly. Guys that most of our audience has never heard of. And that's
other than
not
Troy Brouwer.
Diminish the job that they do, but that it's just a lower level position that ends up going on these kinds of trips typically. So once you get to that level, it suggests there's somebody in the lineup that they had some serious interest in. Justin Falk's a guy that maybe would check that box. Robert Thomas is another. There was a Boston Bruins beat writer that actually just tweeted out a little bit ago that he's a player the Bruins definitely have interest in. He added that Owen Tippett is another guy that the Bruins would have some interest in. Feels relevant. They've got 2 first-round picks in each of the next 2 drafts to the Boston Bruins.
And this one is they have Toronto's, which looks like it's going to be a top 10 pick because Toronto's about to do their sell-off.
Alex, when you think about this, like, is there a big trade coming?
I don't know if it includes Robert Thomas with Boston. Boston, at least the reports that I have read, Boston has no appetite to trade the kid that they just drafted top 10, James Higgins. They want to trade a guy that was a second-round pick, this Matthew Poitras. They want to trade or will be willing to dangle Mason Lohrei, who's an NHL defenseman, 6'5", so he's one of those mongoons for you, that's playing for the Boston Bruins. I think there's a potential trade with Boston and St. Louis because of a guy like Justin Falk, because of a guy like Braden Shen, and because of a guy like Pius Suter. Look, there are 31 teams that are interested in Robert Thomas if his name is out there, which is why you keep hearing all these connections. Sure, Boston wants him if they're willing to pay what Doug Armstrong wants, because I have to imagine anything for Robert Thomas starts with James Higgins, who's got the potential to be a number 1 center in the NHL. He was just drafted in this past year's draft, was supposed to be a top 3 pick, dropped down a little bit. That's what it starts with. I don't think that Boston wants to do that. Is there a chance it happens? Absolutely. I think those conversations for Thomas start now, go to the offseason. I do think Boston is going to be a trade partner with the Blues. I've said this to you guys all along. If you want to see a good return for the Blues when they trade Justin Falk, hope that Tyler Myers gets traded to somewhere other than Boston and Detroit. And it sounds like that chance of him going to Detroit is starting to wane a little bit because he hasn't been traded yet. He's got a full no move. That's where I think Boston and St. Louis can get creative. I don't think it surrounds Robert Thomas. I think it surrounds their other pieces that they've been dangling for a while.
By the way, there was a report this morning. The Blues are looking for Rasmus Andersson type of return for Justin Falk. We had heard that previously.
That was Zach Whitecloud, first-round pick, second-round pick, and a younger prospect. I don't think they're looking for the Zach Whitecloud equivalent, though, of an NHL. I think they're looking for like a younger guy, because I think Whitecloud's like 26, 27 years old.
Sure.
I think they're looking for somebody. Yeah, you're looking for somebody around like the 22 to 25 range that's controllable, that is close to being NHL ready. And
Logan
honestly,
Mailloux. You're looking for another Logan Mailloux.
And I think they could get that for Falk, because I told you guys, it's Tyler Myers, who has a full no-move clause. It's Rasmus Ristolainen, who Philadelphia reportedly doesn't want to trade him unless they're getting a significant return. And you're not going to get a significant return for middle pair, third pair. It's kind of like what Ben Sherratt was when he was traded. It's not anything sexy. And then Mackenzie Weegar, who gets to determine where he wants to go. If they want a defenseman, Justin Falk is probably the number one target, which is why you can get a pretty decent return, because Rasmus Andersson set the market.
I'm really curious to see what they decide to do, because they have so many different options.
Yeah.
Like this is truly a choose-your-own-adventure trade deadline for the Blues, because you've got a little bit of everything. Yeah. If you want a controllable player that could be a part of your core for the next 5+ years, well, we've got Jordan Kyrou and Robert Thomas that might fit that criteria. If you're in a win-now mode and you just want somebody that's going to be able to be the final piece potentially for you as a veteran team, well, Braden Shen as a center and Justin Falk could potentially fit into that criteria. You want to win over the next couple of years, but you're kind of in that middling situation. A team like the San Jose Sharks could potentially fit into this criteria. Maybe the Seattle Kraken, who we saw last night. Well, Pius Suter could be somebody that definitely helps you out. If you're really trying to push and you're saying, hey, we're all in right now. Hey, maybe you take a crack at somebody like a Jordan Binnington or Colton Parayko. Mm-hmm. They've got everything. They've got every kind of asset that another team can be looking for. And the Blues ultimately gets to determine which direction are we going here. And that will set them up for what their offseason plans are going to be as well.
It's why I'm just not so stern on the fact of, like, I think they're going to be bad again next year. I got to see what the return is for what they can get with these pieces that they trade. You could get something of significant that's playing on your NHL roster for Falk. Next year, for Falk. You could get something of significant of return for Jordan Kyrou. And I think you could do the same for Braden Shen, depending on what that appetite is. If you could get 3 pieces that fight with an NHL roster spot or the equivalent that you can flip in the offseason, on top of them being a top 5 pick team where you're potentially getting a star, you've got the potential to make it work next year. But that's where it gets to the Robert Thomas and Colt Parayko conversation of what are you getting for them? Because if you move them, you're going to be bad. It's just a matter of, can you get something back that gets here faster than you expect?
And beyond all, like to pair along with that, Alex, if you trade all of this other stuff and you just keep Colton Parayko and Robert Thomas, could you then just have all of the other stuff that you were missing previously?
It's very possible.
And that's where I struggle with this is I don't understand the urgency to make this move.
And that's just
unless it's just seeming like, it's just a mindset thing.
That's the thing. It's behind-the-scenes stuff that we don't know, because on paper, you keep Robert Thomas. But what do they know that we don't?
I think they might be overblowing that. Can't they get through? Can't they just, if it's about the captaincy, like let's be real, it seems like that's got to play into this in some way or another, right? Robert Thomas wanted to be the captain last time around. He didn't get it. And now he could potentially want it this time around, and maybe it's going to go to Jake Neighbors. If they believe he's going to pout about that, and that's why they want to potentially move him ahead of that decision, and this is all speculation by me, I don't know, man. That seems...
If that's true, you're acting as if it's as easy enough to walk in there and say, hey, man, buck up and get over it.
It kind of is. He's under contract.
That's fine, but how often do 26-year-old guys...
mean you're going to be mentally there to play.
When you were 26, if you were upset about something and somebody walked up and said, hey, man, get over it.
You've got a job to do.
I'm 26. I would have hit him in the face.
You've got a job to do.
I understand that, but people have
to answer your
personalities.
question, I did want jobs that I did not get when I was 26 years old. And guess what? You go do your job the next day. That is the role. Like, can you pout about it and be upset about it and feel bad for yourself about it for a few days? Sure. And then you buck up and you say, let's go do our job and let's try to be the best at whatever it is on that day. If he can't be the captain, so be it. They probably decided you're not going to be the captain for a reason. Now go prove them wrong. Like, that's the way that you should be looking about this.
Though, like when you were the high, I guess he would be the highest paid player on the roster at this point.
Yeah,
tied for
if Kyrie gets moved, yeah.
It's just different, right? I understand what you're saying, and I agree with
Not every highest paid player on a team, though, is the captain of their team. Yeah, but not every
highest paid player wants it, And I think that's where it's different. And I think if he does want it, and we can say, I'm agreeing with you, right? Like, everything you said, I'm over here going, yeah, that's my GM mindset thinking right now.
Cold-blooded.
I'm cold-blooded. I'm with you. Hell yeah, brother.
That's cold-blooded. It's professionalism.
But again,
do your job.
But every single person isn't the same. One person who has that mindset isn't the same as somebody else who says, no, I want to be it, and if I'm not, I'm not happy.
If I'm being honest, if I'm Steen taking over and I have to do this conversation that we're having right now,
it's problematic in itself.
I could just see why he's like, dude, I don't want to deal with this crap, right? Like, let's do, you know what? I can do this by getting rid of him and getting 3 legitimate assets in return.
And I think we should reiterate, like, this is all we don't know this to be true. This is just our speculation.
There just has to be more to this story than we don't think he's a good hockey player that fits into our court.
Because that's just not true.
It can't be.
Yeah, it's just not true.
There's got to be more to the story. So from the 3-1-4, BK, what if it wasn't BK and Ferrario, and instead they shifted it to Tanner and Ferrario? Would you be okay with that change?
Well, why the bleep is it Tanner first?
Well, regardless.
Who calls me Tanner?
That would be a demotion. That is not what we're talking about here. We are talking about not getting a promotion. When Stalter got the opportunity on the fast lane and I didn't, maybe I wanted that job. I didn't get it, and Stalter was more qualified for that job. When Jamie then got the opportunity on the fast lane and I didn't, Jamie was more qualified for that job. He's a former NHL player. So, yeah, he got it and I didn't. That doesn't mean that I just now mope and complain about
what if it was Tanner that got that job?
That is a very different
situation. But that's what this is. If Jake Neighbors would get
it's not. It's more like Tim getting the morning show when we didn't. And guess what? They deserved it, and they bring in revenue that we don't.
But Neighbors doesn't have the same type of qualifications of Robert Thomas.
But he does.
He doesn't have a Stanley Cup, but he doesn't have the same tenure that Robert Thomas does.
The job is not about who is the best player. The job is about who is going to lead the team. And if we are all looking at it, and we're not inside of the locker room, but everything we've heard, everything we've seen, and we can go based upon what we see at the games as well, dude, Jake Neighbors is the guy that is probably most qualified for that specific role. It's just different. Who's going to get the most ice time? Well, Robert Thomas, because he's your best player. Adam Lowry is not necessarily the best player on his team.
You said
but he's the guy that they determined to be their captain. So I don't know. All of this just seems crazy.
I don't think this is why they're talking Robert Thomas. I think they're looking at it being 4 years of the same problem and saying we can't keep doing this.
And
so guess what?
Part of the problem, not a big part, but part of the problem is Robert Thomas.
Every single person on the roster is part of the problem.
Exactly.
And that's why everybody is available. And what you do, you're not doing your due diligence if you sit here and say, oh, well, this guy's untouchable. Everybody, if your team has been bad for 4 years, everyone is available because you're trying to better the team. But the only way I'm trading a guy that is probably somebody I should look at and say, yeah, this is a guy I can't move, is if you give me something that is just dumb for you to trade away. And if somebody's willing to do it, is it worth taking a step back to get there?
I've got a follow-up question. If somebody's willing to give you that kind of a price for Robert Thomas, don't you then have to step back and say, what are we missing? Why are these teams willing to give us all of this stuff for this
because
guy?
I've been bad for 4 years and say, are we going to have the same problem again next year?
Couldn't you also say, hey, maybe that guy's not the reason we've been bad for 4 years. Maybe we've been bad because we didn't support him with the necessary
I would also counter and say
let's find out what it looks like when we've got a top 2 pick standing next to him on his line.
I think if you get a top 2 pick.
Yeah, but I want to find out first.
Well, again, I'm doing all of this under the umbrella of I'm not trading him at the deadline. I think that would be malpractice as a general manager to trade that type of player at the deadline. I want 31 teams that believe they can win the Stanley Cup saying this is our missing piece. That's how you get a better return.
We've got to go to break. We need to double.
It's 1 o'clock.
Bradford, do me a favor. Let's go ahead and get a double break here. We've also got the dreaded 1 o'clock segment coming up while we're out here at the Centene Community Ice Center. He's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. Coming up next, you know what? We're just going to continue this conversation.
Why not?
It's too good to avoid it. We'll do that next year on 101 ESPN.
College basketball is on ESPN tomorrow. Duke and Virginia, tip-off at 11 a.m. Your home for the NCAA is 101 ESPN. Missed the Blues game? Want to hear the highlights? Need player reaction? Want more analysis and opinion? It's all here on Curbside, your next day post-game podcast with the voice of the St. Louis Blues, Chris Kerber. Catch new episodes of Curbside every morning after every Blues game at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. Curbside is presented by Bellman Automotive. For the best price on a new Buick, GMC, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, or a used vehicle, shop Bellman in Troy. Online at Bellman.com. You can't do better than Bellman. WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center, presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK.
Good?
Nice.
Is this thing on?
Heated argument in that last segment. I like that.
Carried into break.
No, and you didn't get upset like you always do. Man, way to go.
I will tell you.
No tone?
I saw someone text and said, this has been a fire show.
Fire? Did they use the emoji?
They did.
Mental health awareness moment here. If you're struggling with anxiety or OCD or you think you may have symptoms from it, get it checked out.
Or anger, fits of anger and rage, because I have those a lot. And I went to my doctor and I said, hey, look, I want to punch my co-host in the face 99% of the time. What can you do for me?
It can change your life. All right, back to the hockey side of things.
I think mental health awareness is good.
Let's now trade Thomas.
So we were talking a lot about Robert Thomas. Anybody just tuning in, first of all, it's 105. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Robert Thomas is a good player. Does anybody disagree with that statement?
No.
Robert Thomas is already locked in on a below market value deal. Does anybody disagree with that statement?
Not at all.
Robert Thomas can be a number 1 or a number 2 center for a contender for a Stanley Cup. Does anybody disagree with that statement?
Nope.
No.
If you trade Robert Thomas...
Did you say yeah?
No, I said no.
Oh, okay.
If you trade Robert Thomas, you will then be looking for the next Robert Thomas. Again, does anybody disagree with that?
No.
I don't disagree with that at all.
Okay. So then why would you trade him?
Why would you trade him? Because the Robert Thomas that we have as a Blues team has not been a number 1 center for us. Now, you can argue off of points percentage, yes, he has, but where has the team gone in the 4 years that he has been the number 1 center? To the playoffs once and lost in Game 7 when he went on a tear. Like, I will give that man credit. The big reason you made the playoffs that season was because Robert Thomas was not just the best player on your team, he was the best player in the National Hockey League.
He literally led the league in points after the Four Nations face-off last year.
But if I'm going to argue it, that was 2 months.
Agreed.
What did he do the other 4 months? Now, he was injured a little bit. He was injured this season. Like, I can make arguments all along. But if I'm a front office personnel and I am looking at my roster, I am saying for the last 4 seasons, from October to January, we have been a sub-500 team. And then 2 of the seasons, we've had to fire a coach to get our team to go on a run, made runs, made the playoffs once.
Totally agree with you.
Who's the guy that was on the ice the most in the scenarios, too?
Robert Thomas. And I would say that he was not the primary reason as to why this team has failed. I think the team has failed Robert Thomas every bit as much as Robert Thomas has failed the team.
Yes, I'm with you. I agree.
Doug Armstrong said on our show, he is a guy that could win a Selke trophy. But to do that, we have to support him with wingers that can get him to that place. And they said they think he can be a 100-point producer. But to do that, we need to supply him the wingers that can get him there. Do you guys think they have?
No.
I think he's had good wingers. I don't know if he's had the elite guy.
He has not had a guy that can score 40 goals on his swing.
I agree with that sentiment. But I think like Kyrou, Booch are good wingers that if he's an elite center, should help elevate those guys.
Who are the players? Like, those guys are not as good, though.
But and by the way, they were elevated. They had
25 games again. By the way.
Well, no, I'm looking at Jordan Kyrou in bulk. Like, he scored 35 and 37 goals. Like, and that was on playing lines with Robert Thomas.
And Booch, same thing.
And Booch did it with Vladimir Tarasenko.
Was with Thomas.
Where did it get you?
Sure. I don't think that was exclusively because Robert Thomas wasn't good enough. I think you can win a Stanley Cup with Robert Thomas as a part of the core. I think you're going to need improvements elsewhere on your roster. And I think what they're saying, if they make this move, I think they're saying one of the biggest issues with this team is actually the mindset. It's not just the lack of skill. It's not just the lack of scoring ability. It's nothing. No, we actually believe that the room is the problem. And I think they would be telling you this with their action if they decided to trade Robert Thomas, because I think everybody involved agrees that he's a good hockey player. And if they decide to move him, it would be an open admission, in my opinion, that this is as much about the locker room as it is about the on-ice level of play. And so that to me would be, man, quite a statement about what they have constructed inside of the locker room over the last few years and what Robert Thomas's place is within all of that stuff. So, yeah, I wouldn't move him. I would wait. I would not do this. I would say this is a conversation that we have at this time next year or the summer of next year, because I want to see what it looks like if they are able to continue to add pieces to support Robert Thomas in the quest of being something more than what they have been over the last 4 years. And he's 26 years old. He hasn't been healthy for now about a year. I just want to see it a little bit longer.
It's why, sorry, T-Bone, to cut you off. It's why I want to keep reiterating, the only way I'm trading Robert Thomas is if I'm getting multiple pieces in return that are a part of my NHL roster immediately.
What are the odds that that player is going to be as any
Slim
of those
to
players
none.
are as good as Robert Thomas?
Slim to none. But you know what? I'm going to dangle that out there and see if somebody bites that worm. Because if they do, if somebody goes out there and says, I'll trade my second line center who's 23 years old and my third pair defenseman who's 21 years old who have upside for a guy who's going to help me win right now, I'll trade those guys for Robert Thomas. Then I'd look into it. But I'm not trading Robert Thomas. Belief that they're going to trade Robert Thomas for 3 first-round picks in the next years and say, all right, we'll go get him with the – that's the only way they're trading Robert Thomas. So there is a real scenario that, yeah, you know what, maybe the marriage is broken a little bit. Maybe, as Nick Kiprios reported, both sides aren't happy where they're at. If we don't get the return, you're going to suck it up for us, because we need you to play for us.
Coming up next, 314-399-646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. I have so much to react to from what Alex, but we go to break and we'll talk about it more on the other side here on 101 ESPN.
Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. Broadcasting live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
Talking a lot about Robert Thomas, the Blues, the direction they're heading in. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you guys want to get involved, it's 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Also, YouTube chat is off and running, youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. By the way, when we were having that conversation about Thomas, news did come out. It sounds as though Matthew Joseph has officially cleared waivers, and he's probably going to be heading to the AHL Springfield Thunderbirds for Matthew Joseph. Any surprise there, Alex?
No, just real quick on it. I mean, they put that announcement out, meaning he's not terminating his contract like Texier and Saad did. They terminated it the moment that he cleared waivers. They're not terminating it. He accepted his roll down in the minor leagues, which tells me they're going to continue to search for a spot for him before Friday's deadline.
All right, back to the Robert Thomas conversation. Alex, if they trade Thomas, how do they find a number one center?
In the return for the trade.
Can I be honest? I don't think it is. You've got years to figure that out. Because you trade Robert Thomas, you're in a rebuild. I don't think it's something that you have to look at the moment the deal is done and say, we have our answer internally in a couple of
If I'm trading Robert Thomas, the main piece that's coming back in return is a younger centerman that has high upside.
I agree, ideally, but if that's not on the market and they say we want a high upside.
Well, then Thomas isn't getting traded.
Well, what if they say we want a high upside winger?
Don't care. No, I don't need a winger.
On top of a high upside defenseman, and then we'll take a first-round pick top.
Then I hang up the phone and I say, you're not getting a high up, or I don't want a high upside winger.
If I add in the idea that they were looking at it, as we've talked about, and again, if you trade him, I assume it's probably not just because he's a good hockey player that you think he's a bad hockey player. You think there's stuff in the locker room as well. If you look at that and say, okay, well, we can't get that top line set, we're still going to make that trade. I'm not worried that you don't get him in the return for Thomas. Because if you trade Thomas, I know what's happening. It's a rebuild. And that means I've got about 5 years to figure out where that next number one center
comes from. And I don't think there's any appetite for that. I don't think it's going to be a 5 years.
I
think the only way Thomas is somewhere else.
Thomas, unless they're at least kicking the tires on potentially rebuild.
Let's take Boston, for example. Let's say all of the people that are speculating the Boston Bruins want Robert Thomas. Let's say Boston calls up and says, hey, we want Robert Thomas. Good. The deal starts with James Higgins, former top 10 pick. That was a centerman that's drafted that's playing well in college right now. The only way Thomas is off of my team is if I have a centerman that has high upside in the same age bracket as all of my other core pieces. That's the reason why you're trading Robert Thomas, is because you don't feel like he fits into the core of guys that are moving forward. You're taking a step back. You're kicking the can down the road 2-3 more years until the next wave of guys are ready to compete. So that's, in my opinion, where the centerman comes from. The Kyrou trade, if they trade Kyrou, the best return possible. Sure. Falk, Shen, best return possible. Thomas is filling a hole that I'm trading away.
How many legitimate number one centers do you think there are in the league? I guess maybe let's start there. I know this is a hard question.
Connor McDavid's not one, so just wipe him off the board.
And he makes too much money.
I mean, so let's just hear. I got the standings pulled up right here. Tampa Bay, Braden Point. Detroit, Dylan Larkin. Montreal, Nick Suzuki. Carolina, Sebastian Aho. I think that's kind of Robert Thomas territory.
I would agree.
Pittsburgh, Sidney Crosby. Buffalo, Tage Thompson. Tim Stützle with the Ottawa Senators. Florida with Barkov. Toronto, I guess if you want to consider Austin Matthews it. Yeah. Devils have Jack Hughes. Colorado's got McKinnon. Minnesota's got I would actually say Minnesota doesn't have a legit number one center. Theirs is Eriksson, Ek, and Ryan Hartman.
Yeah, I don't know if they're...
Dallas has got Wyatt Johnston. Vegas has got Jack Eichel. Edmonton, McDavid. Anaheim, Leo Carlson. Utah's got Logan Cooley. And then Kopitar, but Kopitar's going to be gone. Macklin, Celebrini.
16.
I'd put Mark Scheifele in there.
Sure.
And then, Elias Pettersson.
So about half the league.
Half the league.
Is that what we counted?
Yeah.
So the reason that I bring that up, most of those guys you mentioned, they had the pedigree of, people knew they were going to be top line centers. Like Sidney Crosby, there was no doubt about that. Connor McDavid, no doubt about that. Nathan McKinnon, no doubt about that.
Wyatt Johnston, I don't think people expected that.
Sure.
Yeah, that one was
but those are exceptions rather than the rule. The rule seems to be you're drafted to be this, and you eventually become what you were expected to be. There are exceptions. Hell, Robert Thomas wasn't necessarily supposed to be this when he was drafted.
What was he, 17th, 18th
Yeah,
overall?
he was the middle of
like
the
that?
first-round pick. Those guys don't, generally speaking, become number one centers. And so, like, when you bring up the name James Hagan, listen, I'm not a James Hagan
honk
ball knower. I'm not familiar.
He doesn't play ball.
Yeah, we have pucks.
Yeah, exactly.
Rubber knower.
I don't know. Maybe
on.
he's expected to be this.
Girthy.
I would probably bet against it. I would say he's probably more in line with Dalibor Dvorsky than like what Robert Thomas is right now.
I mean, when you're
a middle six center,
when you're drafted that high, the expectations are you're going to be that good.
and the reason that I wanted to have all of that conversation is because even if we're talking about this being a rebuild and it's going to take a few years, the odds of you finding the next Robert Thomas are slim. And so whether it's within that trade or in the draft, wherever, you have to find that guy.
Mm-hmm.
That becomes what it is when you're in the NFL and you don't have a quarterback. Everything within your organization becomes about finding the next quarterback. You can add the left tackle. You can add the number one receiver. You can add a number one corner, a number one edge rusher, all of these different things, and you can put together one hell of a roster. None of that matters if you don't have the quarterback. In the NHL, if you don't have a number one center, a number one defenseman, and a legit goalie in the playoffs, man, it doesn't matter. You're not going to be a legitimate contender. And so that's why I go back to I wouldn't trade the guy that I already have in place locked in at one of those three positions. I feel like I have that locked in right now, not just for today, but for the next 7 years. I feel like I've got maybe close to a number one defenseman with Philip Broberg. I feel like they've got a pretty good candidate to be a number one goalie right now with Joel Hofer. That's the makings of the spine of whatever this next era of Blues hockey is going to be. And I understand maybe he's going to be upset about the captaincy, and maybe he's not the perfect guy. This is all speculation by me, but maybe he's not a guy that you necessarily want as like the face of your franchise. Okay, so be it. I'm going to build the roster to where we're doing a whole hell of a lot of winning. And you know what, generally speaking, gets better when you do a lot of winning? The attitude. A lot of people have a lot better attitudes whenever they're walking around in a winning locker room as opposed to them walking around losing more often than not. And the Blues have done a hell of a lot of losing over the last 4 years. I would imagine it's not a super happy place to be right now because they have the second worst record in the NHL, man. And for the last 4 years, I'd have to look it up. I have to imagine they're bottom 10 in the league in record over the last 4 years. So yeah, he's probably a little upset about that more often than not. I get it. I haven't had the best wingers alongside me, and we haven't done a lot of winning. I want to see it. I want to see more. I wouldn't trade him.
The thing about Thomas, though, if you're going to be the number one center, it all comes down to consistency. Like all these guys that we just listed off that were number one centers, you know what they're going to provide every single night. And there have been times over the last couple of seasons that just like we make the complaint about Jordan Kyrou, or we make the complaint about Pavel Buchnevich, or we make the complaint about one of your defensemen or your goaltender, you don't know what you're going to get. And that's hard to have as a 26-year-old centerman. Curb says this all the time on the broadcast. There's no more patience with these guys. These guys have been in the league long enough.
In their prime now.
Yeah, this is the prime years. This is why they paid them the money, because they said this is their prime. We're getting them at a steal. We expect them to continue to excel. Again, I respect the hell out of Robert Thomas. I think he is a really, really good player. He's got 1C potential. But there are a lot of nights where he's not there and you're relying on somebody else to step over the boards. Like Steve Ott, when we would interview him, sorry, T-Bone, I'm long-winded here. When I would get to interview Steve Ott after losses and wins early on in the season, you know, we talk about what went wrong. And he said, we don't have the guy that when he steps over the boards, he goes out there and he changes the game. Now, Thomas has been injured this season. From what they've told us, the procedure that he had, this has been needed all year long.
Correct.
So that could change when he comes back and everybody shuts their mouth the moment they see him and say, yep, not touching this guy.
But wasn't that part of a problem last year, too, at the beginning? You didn't know what you're going to get.
Well,
from
remember, he blocked the shot at the beginning of the season last year.
I get it.
And then he
came
missed
back from a broken bone.
Well, and Luke Korak, I'm going to give him credit for we talked about this a couple of days ago. Man, when it's something like that and guys come back, Dylan Holloway even said as much yesterday. I had to get back on the ice because it sucks to sit out. Yep. Imagine being the number one center where you're sitting out saying, I got to get back. When you come back, Torrey Krug had that arthritis that built up because he rushed back when he was playing with the Boston Bruins. So, like, sometimes guys just aren't healthy, and we're assuming that the moment you step on the ice, you're 100%. But the hard part with that is, if I'm going to complain about Dylan Holloway not being consistent because of your health. Don't you have to do the same thing with Robert Thomas?
And then the thing that we're talking about, like not knowing what you're getting from him night in, night out, I don't think that is just look at his wingers, right? At some point, we have to point at him as well and say, okay, if I don't know what you're getting when we put you over the boards every night, then that's not the number one guy that I want to build around.
I think maybe, but
I think they know what they're getting. It's just is he doing it consistently?
Overstating things a little bit. Like he had 77 points in 72 games, 65 points in 73 games, 86 points in 82 games, 81 points in 70 games. He's been a point per game producer for 5 years now. No, he hasn't reached the 100-point threshold. Very few players do. He's not perfect. He's got warts in his game. He's pretty freaking good, though. And, I would like him to shoot a little bit more. I think he's got a good shot. Doesn't shoot enough. I would like him to have more than a point per game. I would rather him be in that 100-point range, the way that, the legit top 5 guys in the league are. I think if you put better players around him, he will have more likelihood to get into that point per game range. He is still 26 years old right now. I don't know, man. I think we're being a little hard on a guy on the ice for what he's been able to produce over the last 4+ years. I would say right now, and somebody on the text line, by the way, brought up, I think it's a fair point, and I want to make sure that I say this one more time. What's your evidence to constantly say that Thomas is a bad guy in the locker room? Are we talking about just the Nick Kypreos thing? I am not saying that he is a bad guy inside of the locker room. What I'm saying is every piece of evidence that we have on him on the ice is a quality NHL level player, and he's 26 years old. He's locked in on a below market value deal, and you've got him for multiple years remaining on his contract. There's almost no reason to trade that player unless you are worried about something in the dynamics of what's going on inside of that locker room. And that might not all be a direct reflection of Robert Thomas. It might be the mix. And you say, we've got to change something out here. We're not trading the 23-year-old, so let's trade the 26-year-old. That's what I'm saying is if they were to make this move, it would speak to something other than just his on-ice production.
To that point, let's flip the script for a minute. Let's say Nick Suzuki's on the trade block right now for the Montreal Canadiens.
I'd trade Thomas for him.
What's the first thing you say when you see his name pop up?
Why?
Yep. He's a point-per-game guy. He's a number 1 center. Penalty kill, power play, puts up points. Why is that guy available? The same thing. When Elias Pettersson's name came out a couple of years ago, what was the first thing we said? First thing I said was, I'll trade for that guy. Yep. And then as more came out.
You hear the rumblings. And you talk to literally anybody that's around the NHL. And I'm talking guys here in St. Louis or elsewhere. And they're like, no, you don't want him.
Now I'm not saying want that guy. I'm not saying that's Robert Thomas because, guys, when Jack Eichel was out there available, there was no concern of Jack Eichel being a bad guy. It was, hey, the team's messed up right now.
Want to operate on his neck.
Yeah, when Ryan O'Reilly was available because he said, I just lost my happiness to play the game, people are like, what's going on here? I think you legitimately stopped having happiness playing the game. But what I'm saying is we're not saying he's a bad guy at all. If anybody else in the NHL were to see that name available, what's going on here? Why is this guy available? And so we're asking the same question. A guy who puts up 90 points in a season, a guy that could be a 100-plus point player at 26 years old, does not become available.
Ever. And that's what I'm saying here. I'm so glad you got to this, Alex. The fact that this is even a conversation is crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy, dude. We talked about this previously, Alex.
It's Gnarls Barkley crazy.
Trying to find a comparison. Oh, my God. Are you serious?
Maybe I'm crazy.
No, actually, this is on him. Yeah. This is not
No.
That was when you were 10 or 11.
You old guys make more modern
That's not
references.
even old,
this is
10
years ago. What year do you think?
2009, 2010.
I was not.
You were 10.
I was in middle school.
Wow, 2006.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
see?
God.
Wow.
It was popular, though, for 5 more years.
Old guys.
I got you
That
off
was
your rocker,
20
man.
years
You were
ago.
going to make a great
You
point.
guys are freaking old.
Maybe I'm crazy.
That was 20 years ago?
Dude, you acted like 20 years wasn't that long ago earlier today in
Yeah.
commercial. We're
Oh, my
are you kidding me, man?
That was the same year
I
the
was in
Cardinals won the
kindergarten.
World
Yeah.
Series. Oh, my
That's
God.
why he created the song, An Unknown Source.
That's basically how far you have to go back to find a comparable trade for somebody like a Robert Thomas.
Yeah.
So the fact that he could potentially become available is bonkers.
Yeah, so that's the only reason we're having this conversation of There's something behind we don't know because these guys don't become available. And again, I don't know what they know. All I can go off of is what I see on the ice and what I hear players talk about. Nobody ever talks bad about Robert Thomas. He's a good guy and performs when he's on the ice. He's been injured. But why would they be putting him on the market if they're going to a younger core? Because the younger core we're talking about is 22, 23, 24 years old. This guy's 2 years older than that.
That's the thing, dude. He fits into it. Like if I'm somebody on the outside looking in, I would say, why are we arbitrarily setting a line at 25? Why can't it be set at 26 and just include Robert Thomas?
25. We don't go over it.
That's what I'm confused by. Why? Why is that the age?
But if they have an appetite to move him, I have to say something can't be right because you're not this team. When has this team ever given you the evidence? Because if they just moved him, he's a great dude. He's a great leader. He's got all the points, and they just moved him. They'd be like the Buffalo Sabres, and we'd be talking about this every year. When was the last time the Blues made a trade of a young guy that you said, what the hell is going on here?
But that was more.
That was even explainable.
We're missing this kind of player inside of our core. We're going to get a little bit more of that.
This is not a poorly run.
Was he wing at that time too, or no?
Who?
Oshie. Was he center at that point?
He's always been a wing.
Okay, yeah. And that's the other thing. He was a winger too. And we've talked. I just mentioned the idea of giving you a high upside winger. You said I don't need a winger.
This is not a poorly run organization. So if they're having these conversations, they're not happy with where the team is at, and there's a reason behind it.
Real quick from the 314, maybe he just wants to win. Great. Guess what? He's under contract.
And can you win here?
I think that we have gone way too far, and you guys know I have been consistent on this. This is not a new thing for me. I am generally speaking pro player, but we have given players way too much leverage. Robert Thomas has almost zero leverage with the St. Louis Blues. He is under contract for years. He signed the deal, and he is a part of the Blues core. If he wants to, he could go play in the KHL. I don't think Robert Thomas is doing that. So, what is his leverage here? He can say he wants to go elsewhere. He can request or demand a trade, do whatever. I don't think that's happened, but the Blues have the leverage. They're the ones that determine what the future looks like for Robert Thomas here in St. Louis. Now, he could then say, I don't want to go elsewhere because of his no-trade clause.
He even said as much last week when Lou Korac asked him. He said, look, I got a no-trade clause, so whatever they throw at me, I can swat down.
He can decide if he's not going elsewhere. He cannot, though, determine if he is going elsewhere. That is up to the Blues.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that it's a conversation or that there's speculation out there and that the Blues are potentially listening on him, it tells me what the Blues think of the situation much more so than what Robert Thomas thinks about the situation.
And that's just the part for me that it's like I understand people are down on some of the decisions that the Blues have made lately. I look at the big picture and be like, man, when has this team ever been a poorly run organization? When has this team ever made decisions?
I would say there's been some choices.
The Alex Pietrangelo one, but that was one where there was both sides.
I feel like that's how we kind of got here, isn't it?
You're right.
It's been kind of poorly run.
But these are pending free agents that they weren't willing to pay.
Letty.
All of these are free agents. When was the last time?
The Kevin Hayes trade.
Agreed.
A lot of us didn't like the Kevin Hayes trade. And guess what? They admitted that failure. It's 364 days later. But via trade for a guy that is a young player or a average.
They've never done this.
They don't do that. Like, people are going to bring up on the text, I'm not even going to open it up because it's probably Bolduc.
I'll add this. They didn't do this under Army. I don't know what Steen's thinking. It is a new president of hockey
operations. But Steen's working under Doug Armstrong.
I think they might be pushing in different directions right now.
I don't think so. I don't think Steen takes this job unless he's in the same mindset as Doug Armstrong.
Steen probably thought the same way with Army going into the year.
We have no evidence to suggest that.
Yeah. And I think
nothing about anything that's happening right now suggests they're at a crossroads of pulling in different directions. There's no speculation. There's been no reporting about anything like that. It's possible that Steen does want to pull them into a different direction, and he can do that when he takes over. But he's not in that capacity right now. Right now, it's similar to what it was at the deadline, where Mo was still making decisions. This is still Army's team. He gets to choose what they do at this year's deadline.
And Army's still going to be here after this year. Like, we're acting as if Army's just going to fizzle away into the abyss.
He's not making roster moves.
He's not making roster moves. He's going to be there. He's still the president of hockey operations, but he has said the general manager will make the final decision. I will provide my advice. Basically, the inner circle is just being handed over to Alexander Steen, and Doug becomes a part of that circle. I just will not believe that a guy like Alexander Steen, who I have had numerous conversations with, who has a competitive fire like anyone you can imagine, is just going to look at this team and say, I'm going to get my first job as general manager and let's rebuild. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, it seems like a strange direction to go, but I don't know, man. I don't know. All of this feels very odd when it comes to what their plans are, both at the deadline. I thought they would be making significant moves at this trade deadline. I did not think we were going to be talking about using this knife and going like all the way in. I thought it was going to be a scalpel. This has now become taking a sledgehammer to the situation.
Speaking of sledgehammers, your chair is about to break. You two stay with us because BK is going down in the next 24 minutes.
Coming up next, we're going to dive into some NFL quick hitters with the biggest news from the NFL Combine yesterday. That's here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
Jamie Rivers here, and it is time for a New Jersey giveaway. This month, we've got your shot to score an autographed Blues jersey signed by the captain, Braden Shen. It's the old Blues jersey, which is now the alternate jersey, and it is a beauty. Jamie's jersey giveaway is presented by St. Luke's, ranked number 3 in the nation for cardiovascular care by Modern Healthcare. Visit stlukes-stl.com.
Is your home for Blues hockey. Check out either the 101 mobile app or 101ESPN.com for your chance to win a signed puck autographed by Blues defenseman Colton Parayko. Get entered to win that Colton Parayko signed puck right now, either at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app, powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Matthews makes first spring training start. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns with a Sports Center update brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. Right now in Jupiter, the Cardinals trail Juan Soto's Mets 7-2. 25-year-old lefty Quinn Matthews tossed 2+ frames, striking out 3. Meanwhile, J.J. Weatherholt has homered off New York reliever Devin Williams. NFL's scouting combine defensive backs and tight ends perform their workouts at 2 p.m. from former MU corner. Toriano Pride Jr. will participate. Eli Drinkwitz guided his current group through its first spring camp session earlier this morning. Weekend puck, St. Louis hosting New Jersey tomorrow. Pre-game coverage starring Alex Ferrario set for 3 o'clock. Your SportsCenter update is presented by Universal Windows Direct.
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Let's dive into some NFL quick hitters. Man, what a hard right turn from the conversation that we've been
can we
having.
stick with hockey or do one's got to go?
I feel like I need a cigarette and a sandwich right now.
I don't smoke. It's bad for your lungs.
I love a good cigar. Can we have whiskey with our sandwich, too?
Have you ever smoked a cigarette?
Yeah.
Peer pressure over here. Have you ever smoked a cigarette?
Yeah.
No, I was just curious.
I did. I remember not regretting it the next day, but there was multiple
Not
things
regretting it?
No, regretting it the next day on top of multiple things I regretted the next day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You want to talk about any of those?
No.
God, I still... Yeah, I remember that story.
How long ago was this? Was this recent?
Yeah, like a year ago.
Oh.
2 years ago.
Okay.
It was,
Did it
about
take
a year
place
ago.
in Alton, Illinois?
Was it
No,
around?
it did not happen in
No, it was. Did it happen around February?
Maybe, yeah.
End of January,
End of
early
January.
February?
Near February.
I don't think you remember. I think you're just like trying to pry. I like legitimately know when he did this.
Yeah.
Do you not know?
Maybe I should. I don't.
You should
recall.
absolutely know because we made fun of him about this the next day.
Hey, I was a champion the next day.
Remember?
Champ Bash. Okay.
Yeah, remember when he was miserable and the next day he was
Came
like,
in
"Ooh."
the next day, and we told him go home.
He's like, I don't feel good. I'm like, well, I wonder why, Tanner.
So that was the second day after that.
Yeah, it was like he's trying to figure out what happened. We're like, go the bleep home, man.
Okay,
I came
yeah,
in looking like I was
remember that.
homeless.
You were like crying like you didn't know. I'm like, man, we made fun of him about this.
Yep. Now
Mistakes
I
were made.
remember.
Mistakes were
A
made.
lot of mistakes were made.
That's all right. That was
Tanner was like, I could handle it.
I feel like most of the stories that are in T-Bone's life have either taken place in Alton, Illinois for March Madness or one of the games that we've gone to for Champ Bash.
We've
There were
had,
definitely better times in
In
college.
we had a massive influence on T-Bone's life as an adult started when he was 21 and he was going to go to Vegas with his dad and his uncle for his birthday. And Ryder
That
and I
one
looked at him and I said,
yeah,
you're
that
not
one-
going.
that one
He was our
wasn't a-
board up for Blues.
That one wasn't a positive one.
Yeah,
That one
he was our board. He was my producer for Blues hockey, and we had nobody. And I said, "You're not going to
And then
Vegas."
I went to the gas station down the road, and the guy's like, "Sorry, I can't sell beer. I'm not old enough." I'm like, "Come on, I'm turning 21, man."
I do not smoke cigarettes, like ever.
Sure.
Probably 3 to 5 times in my entire life have I ever done it.
I do not smoke cigarettes. It's like 3 to 5 times that I smoke cigarettes.
That was
The
weird.
last time that I did was we were in Columbia for a bunch of us get together for Kara's friend group from college.
God, you guys sound
By
like
the way,
a
this is
riot.
NFL quick hitters.
Or one's got to
We'll
go
get to the
ask us
combine in
anything.
a second.
A bunch of us got together in Columbia for a football game. It was Mizzou versus Florida. It was that 4th and 17 game where
Oh,
Luther
yeah.
Burden caught the pass.
And you needed a cigarette.
No. The night before, we all got together. We're all in our 30s at this point. A lot of the girls said, hey, we don't want to go out. And the guys were like, no, we are going out tonight. So we decided to go out. Everybody ended up getting on board. We ended up at Shop Bar, did a bunch of stuff that night. And I've got a picture of us walking down the street, and all the guys are holding a cigarette, either in their ear or smoking at the time. Definitely felt the way the T-Bone
What
did.
a bunch of
Regretted it the next day.
badasses.
but
Shots is
that's
how
the
I
last
got
time.
smoking.
What a bunch of badasses.
All right, guys that I think probably aren't smoking a whole lot of cigarettes are the guys that are at the NFL Combine right now.
I guarantee my boy
There were a lot
Caleb
of
Banks
freak
is
of natures
my
out
boy
there
Caleb
yesterday.
Banks is out there just jumping over linemen, smoking cigs afterwards.
Smoking a dart. All right. Ruben Bain was the story that we talked about yesterday.
T-Rex.
He's got the same length arms as my 2-year-old son. Sonny Styles, linebacker from Ohio State, is apparently the second coming of Luke Kuechly. Just this athletic freak who has been hiding in plain sight. Now, he was considered to be a top 10 to 15 pick going into the NFL Combine. And then Alex, yesterday, he put up one of the best athletic testing days for a linebacker in the history of the NFL Combine. Like, legitimately a top 5 percentile.
How about this? I saw this of guys that he's like outperformed with his results at the combine. Some measurables as well. Taller than Mike Evans, faster than George Pickens, quicker than Patrick Peterson, jumps higher than Devontae Adams, more explosive than Derwin James Jr., and heavier than Trent Cole.
My God. Okay, cool. So
What
that's
an
what
animal.
That's what you call a unicorn.
Unbelievable.
I'll draft that guy.
Here's the thing. He's an off-ball linebacker. He's a true linebacker, not an edge rusher in any way. This is not an Arvell Reese situation. This is not a Micah Parsons situation. This is he's going to be playing off the ball and not as a pass rusher.
Don't care.
Here are the off-ball linebackers that have been picked in the top 10 in the last decade. Isaiah Simmons, Devin Bush, Devin White, Roquan Smith, end of list. If you go back a little further, Luke Kuechly 15 years ago, Rolando McClain in 2010, and that's it in the last 15-plus years. You guys willing to take this guy in the top 10?
Not in the top 10, no. But after the top 10, I'll start to consider it. Because, you go through that list, and that's not a whole lot. Roquan Smith has been a good player. Devin West was a good player. Small sample size of it. I'll roll the dice, though, on our Luke Kuechly. And, I mean, look, you're taking a gamble. But if I'm one of those teams in the middle of the first round or the back half of the first round, I'll take that gamble and get Luke Kuechly.
I think in this year's class, I'm doing it.
I think
in the
I
top
am
10.
too. Yeah.
I know it's not a premium position, but the way that the NFL is trending, it's more and more about the running game. And if this guy can help you both against the run and the pass, and he completely changes the middle of the field for you, I'd really consider it.
How many guys in this draft are a sure thing?
I think you can probably know what you're getting out of Jeremiah Love. Caleb Downs gives me some questions about his size, but I think he's going to be a good player. It's just about what's the value of a good safety and how great would he have to be worthy of a top 10 pick? And if he's not an athletic freak and he's not a huge, crazy looking guy out there, the way that, people bring up Kyle Hamilton. Kyle Hamilton's 6'3", 220. That changes things. We just saw the measurements earlier today. Caleb Downs is 5'11", 200 pounds. That's a very different profile. So I think he's going to be a really good player. I think he's a sure thing. I think Fernando Mendoza is going to be a good quarterback. What's the ceiling? I don't know, but I think he's going to be good. Probably Sonny Styles. I think Sonny Styles is going to be a good linebacker.
That's where I was going at. The draft, I know the answer to that question because in the draft, typically it's rare you have so many guys that are a sure thing. And I don't even know if Sonny Styles is a sure thing. But what I know is that dude is an athletic freak that is doing things that T-Bone just listed off that all other potential Hall of Famers are doing. I'm going to take a gamble with that if I got the 10th, 11th, 12th pick.
And if I'm a team that has the quarterback and, by the way, is desperate for some defensive help, like the Bengals at 10 would make a ton of sense for him. I think the Commanders, you could argue him at 7. I think those would be the spots that I would look at and say, yeah, that makes some sense. And Giants, Tennessee, maybe, but I don't know that I would go that high. I think they're probably going to go more tackle or something like that. But I think he makes sense in the top 10, especially in this draft. If this was last year's draft, a couple years ago, I think you're talking 15 to 30, somewhere in that range. This year, man, this guy looks like a freak of nature that I think I would take him top 10.
D'Angelo Pons, the corner from Indiana, who's just a stud. Guy, he's 5'9", $165, soaking wet. He's tiny. But he plays with his hair on fire. He just did his vertical jump, 43.5 inches. Yeah, that guy's going to the first round. I know he's tiny. I don't care. I want that guy on my football team.
I'll take tiny dudes that can do that any day.
There you go.
I could see him being a Ram at 13. That would make some sense.
Just don't draft my boy Caleb Banks.
No, we need a corner.
No, you need to stay the hell away from that guy.
We need a corner more than we need a guy.
I need to get him on a team that I can root for.
You asked how many guys I'm sure are going to be good football players? That guy, D'Angelo Pons. Put him on my football team. I don't know what the ceiling is. I'm confident he's going to be a really good football player at the NFL level, despite his lack of size, length, and apparently he's super explosive. All right, coming up next, we're going to hit the rewind, give you our final thoughts going into a big college basketball weekend, especially for T-Bone's Illini. Give you our final thoughts on the Blues as well going into the weekend here on 101 ESPN.
Who's got a cigar?
Didn't know you smoke, sir.
I don't.
The Blues play on 101 ESPN.
Big save on one end. Tie game on the other.
Tomorrow night, Blues and Devils. Pregame at 3. Puck drop at 4.
Score! He tucks it in with a great move.
This is your exclusive home for Blues hockey. 101 ESPN. Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. You're tuned into BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with the Daily Rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Lou, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
If you guys missed anything from today's show, I got to tell you, I think it's been a good one. Check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com. The free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
That 101 ESPN app, free to download, super easy to use, and it's sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. We'll finish out the show the way we began, and that's with the Blues win last night. Alex, what did we learn about Dylan Holloway and his return back to the lineup?
That he has the potential to be a top-line player. Everything about Dylan Holloway from what we saw last season, even before the Four Nations break, he is a top-line worthy player. He's 24 years old. His offensive skills, he's just got a nose for the net, has an elite shot, has the speed, plays well defensively. The makings of what the Blues need. It all comes down to staying healthy. And that's, I mean, you can't judge it off of 25 games. If he stays healthy, it's going to be 82 games. They saw 77 of it last year, but he got hurt at the worst time because I truly believe Holloway healthy, they win that series against the Winnipeg Jets. Everything I see from him looks like the guy that you want as a top-line player to build around with this core. It's just, can you shake that narrative of health the rest of this way? And if you're him, try and find a way to get a really good contract down the final 25 games of the season.
Blues off tonight. They have a back-to-back this weekend. Tomorrow at home against the New Jersey Devils. Last game for the Blues at home prior to this year's NHL trade deadline. My recommendation, if you were going to be there, give a strong round of applause to Jordan Binnington, who I would guess is probably going to get the start tomorrow night.
Yeah. Jack Hughes versus Jordan Binnington.
And Braden Shin, who knows? It could be their final game in a Blues uniform at Enterprise.
How weird is it for those guys? Like, they just get this massive round of applause and like, what the hell is going on?
I think they know.
Yeah.
I mean, they know the situation that they're in right now.
I think
this will be the final time potentially.
I assume they've all been approached saying like, look, do you want to go? Here's what we'll let you know if we hear something.
And it can't be more awkward than 2 years ago when people applauded Arenado thinking he was going to be gone, and then he was back. Like, it can't be more awkward than that.
By the way, apparently Quinn Hughes is expected to be on SNL tomorrow night, and there's a possibility that Jack Hughes joins him. That is going to be one quick flight from here to New York, if that's the expectation.
Where are they at after?
So they're going to be on
Devils play here
tomorrow.
I know. Where are they at after that is what I'm saying.
Well, it doesn't matter where they're at. Saturday Night Live is on Saturday night.
No, so he'll fly there. But where do they play after?
They don't play until Tuesday, and they'll be
Jack Hughes will have a road injury in the third period.
No, but like the game will get over at 7, and he's going to immediately have to bust it out of here to get to that.
And he loses an hour, so it's really going to be 8 o'clock there.
Exactly.
The time zone's going to jack you up. See what I did there?
Michigan versus Illinois tonight on Big Fox. 7 o'clock game. 1.5 point line right now in favor of Michigan. T-Bone, I don't feel great about your Illini. I don't know that they can get enough stops to be able to keep this one in their favor. How are you feeling going into this one for the Illini?
Yeah, I'm not feeling good either because I don't know that I trust their defense to get enough stops. And I saw someone when we were talking about this earlier in the show go, well, guys, I think it's 3 of their 4 losses this year are in overtime. And I'm going, yeah, it's in overtime because they couldn't get stops, right? Their offense is going to get there tonight. I kind of expect that. Like, they'll probably put up 75. You're not going to win this game, though, if you're going to allow 85 to Michigan. And I fear that's what's going to happen. So I'm concerned that they can't get stops against the top-end talent.
SLU back in action this weekend as well. Should be a game that they're able to take advantage of. They're at home. They've got Duquesne. They're a 16.5-point favorite. Tomorrow, if they lose that one, we'll have bigger conversations to be had about how they're finishing this season. Mizzou travels to Starkville to take on Mississippi State. This is one of those games. We've been talking about it for a few weeks now. We looked at their schedule and said, man, they just take care of business. They beat the teams that they're supposed to beat. They're going to be just fine. They're going to make it to the NCAA tournament. This was one of those games that they had to take advantage of. They're a better team than Mississippi State, but this is on the road, and that's where they've had a ton of struggles this season. They've been better on the road lately outside of that one blip on the radar with Texas. Be very curious to see what they're able to do tomorrow on the road at Mississippi State. We are going to have plenty to react to on Monday. We'll have Cardinals action to be able to discuss. We'll talk about the Blues with the back-to-back and whether or not they make any kind of a move over the weekend with the trades as well. We'll also be able to break down whatever it is that happens with SLU, Mizzou, and Illinois. All of that coming your way on Monday at 11 a.m. Huge thanks to Bradford, who did a fantastic job for us back in the studio today. We've been broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out of the Centene Community Ice Center. Thank you all so very much for listening. Again, if you missed any of it, be sure to check it out on the podcast page. Appreciate you doing that. Had a ton of Blues conversations today. Also caught up with our guy, Mike McKenna. For Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Have yourself a fantastic weekend. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is your home for Blues hockey. Every month during the season, you can score a pair of tickets to a Blues game at Enterprise Center. A new winner is picked every month throughout the season. Enter to win now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app presented by Ted Drew's Frozen Custard.